plan for the parents to be a seat. I'm just kidding.
So if she comes in, well, I'll just wait till you give me a high sign, send me a text. This is my code number agent. Okay. Sounds good. Actually have today's agenda. Really? As long as it's working. Look at that, there it is. They can always We're going to go ahead and gavel the meeting to order, and we're going to start the welcome everybody to the to Valentine's Eve edition of the GETAC Council meeting. As we do with all our council meetings and per our current strategic plan for the council, we start off with our vision and mission, and our vision is a unified, comprehensive, and effective EMS and trauma system for a healthy, safe Texas. And our mission is to promote, develop, and maintain a comprehensive EMS trauma system that will meet the needs of all patients and that will raise the standards for community health care by implementing innovative techniques and systems for the delivery of emergency care for the entire population. Our first item on the agenda is obviously the GETAC strategic planning session. And for members of the audience or those that may be listening in via the internet, this is not the state strategic plan. The state strategic plan is one of the goals of the council strategic plan. But we're meeting because we said back in October of 2011, I believe, that every 2 years we would renew, look at the council's strategic plan again, and meet and see if we need to make any revisions. So to help us go through that, we have John Leidecker with the Leidecker Group and Martha McLaughlin. Did I say that right? Awesome. Thank you. And they're back to help us renew or revisit our strategic plan. Also, we have a lot of people in the audience. We may have some committee chairs. We will work through council and try to include stakeholder input at appropriate points. I know on the agenda it may say that it's at the end of today's meeting, but I'm sure council will be amenable to letting people speak at certain times. So we're going to kind of go through this, and I'm sorry, we had Director Jane Guerrero here. Did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay. Then I'm going to turn it over to John.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, good afternoon. Nice to see everybody again. Thank you for having us back. One comment before we get started. I understand that Assistant Commissioner Kathy Perkins will... Is that better? I'll start again. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, thank you for having us back again. It's nice to see everybody. Just before we get started, I understand that Assistant Commissioner Kathy Perkins will have an update to provide to you all today. She's not here at this point in time, so with your permission, I would suggest we move ahead, but as Assistant Commissioner Perkins arrives, that we'll halt this piece for her if you're okay with that, Chief Riley.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, a couple things just to make sure that you have some documents for today's discussion. Within your blue folder, or your purple folder rather, you should have You should have an agenda today for the strategic planning session. You will note this agenda is very precise because it has March 14th as the date, but it actually should have Thursday, February 13th and February 14th. So I apologize for that, but you'll know you have the correct agenda if it says March 14 on the front of it. You should also have two other documents that we put as handouts with your packets. A copy of the strategic plan that you worked on and approved back, I believe, in October 2011, which carried you through the end of this year. And then also a copy of the PowerPoint for today, so you can have that as a handout as we move along. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry I made a chair boo-boo. Y'all please forgive me. We have some new members on our advisory council, so we don't want to go any further without taking the opportunity to introduce them. Linda Dickerson was reappointed. We have Judge Mike DeLoach was reappointed. And then in the position of EMS Medical Director, we have Dr. Jeffrey Beeson over here to my right. Also appointed in the Fire Department position is Lieutenant James Williams of the Amarillo Fire Department, and I do not see him. He replaced John Smith. And then for the Urban Trauma Facility, replacing Dr. Ronnie Stewart is Dr. Brian Eastridge, and he's over here to my right. So, welcome, and I will be reintroducing all of you again tomorrow morning at the meeting, and if you'd like to speak, we'll be happy to let you do that. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to just review quickly the agenda that we have on STORE today, just to make sure we're all on the same page. As Chief Riley has pointed out, 2 years ago we underwent a similar process and developed the strategic plan that you have in front of you that I know that you all have been working on and making progress on, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the goals today. But the two objectives that we have today, and I'm referring specifically to the March 14 agenda, which should be February 13th, the two objectives are to review, revise, and update the strategic plan from January 2012 period to December 31, 2013 period, and then to develop a plan to address Goal E from the past strategic plan. So in essence, we're going to review what you all have done in the past, see where we stand on those items, and then we're going to focus a large part of today on Goal E, which, as Chief Riley noted, is the EMS and trauma plan, to get your thoughts on this. In terms of the order of the items that we would like to go through, item number one, call to order. Chief Riley has done so. Again, my name is John Leidecker. My colleague Martha McLaughlin is here with us today. Item number two, reviewing the agenda and handouts. We have done that. I'll talk a little bit in a minute about the process for going through today. Item number three, Chief Riley will just provide just a little bit of background on the strategic planning process, and we'll refer to specific slides at that time. Item number four, we'll have a facilitated discussion where we review the goals of the strategic plan, all except for Goal E. And remember, Goal E is the EMS trauma strategic planning goal, and we'll spend time later talking about that. We'll take a short break from 2:30 to 2:45. 2:45 we'll come back and we'll begin focusing on Goal E, which is the EMS trauma state plan discussion. We'll ask Chief Riley and Jane Guerrero to provide an overview about that plan, the plan that's currently in place, and talk a little bit about some thoughts related to the 2010 American College of Surgeons review process and how that could potentially help inform the new state EMS plan. Item number seven, we'll come back and have a facilitated discussion on Goal E. And there's several things that we'd like to cover in that discussion. One is who should be included in the plan development for the EMS trauma plan, what and how should GETAC committees be involved in this planning process, how should other stakeholders be involved in this process, and looking at recent activities again with the American College of Surgeons, how that information and the recommendations provided by the ACS can help inform the development of this plan. Then we have public comment scheduled, but I believe as Chief Riley has noted that we're certainly at the pleasure of the council, we'll take comment ongoing as you all see fit, and then we'll talk about next steps. So that's what we have on STORE. Long way to go and a short time to get there, I think. At this point, I would like to just turn it over to Chief Riley, and maybe if you would just to provide just a little bit of background for today, if you don't mind, sir.
Sure. Council, shortly after it was created, and I never get the date right, I believe it was 2002, created a statewide EMS and trauma plan. I believe that's still posted on the website, but it is now almost 12 years old. And that's so when we're talking about Goal E, we're talking about that document and what we're going to do with it. And Council has had this will be the third strategic planning retreat. Actually, there was one in Kerrville, I want to say 6 years ago. And then we met again in Bandera in October of 2011. And that's where the council came up with the strategic plan for the council. How are we going to conduct our business? How are we going to get stakeholder input and work on how we are going to function as a council to best serve the stakeholders? So the council has some core responsibilities. We have a legislative charge, and I'm sorry I don't have that document in front of me, but one of those is, part of the legislative charge is to address rural and trauma and EMS for rural areas, and one of those is also to come up with that plan that's under Goal E. What we would like to do today is we're hoping to go through these, as John just went through the agenda, look at the goals that we set in October of 2011, decide whether we want to keep them, throw them out, revise them, amend them, whatever, or check them off and that said that we accomplished the goal. Essentially, John and Martha are going to facilitate the process as we go goal by goal, and then if everyone would like to add more, whatever, that'll be worked in as part of that process. So we actually adopted the current, which I believe is the document that has the green border on it. We actually met in October of 2011 and adopted that for this council in February of 2012. And we also agreed, as I stated earlier, that we would do this every 2 years. I believe that's actually one of the goals, is to always update this. And then since that time, we did try to implement some of the goals. Some of the goals, for various reasons, did not get implemented, but you're not always going to accomplish all of the goals to begin with. So we also got a lot of stakeholder input on some of the goals, and so I think one of those comments in particular was that when we are working on the council strategic plan, that we need to do a better job of including committee chairs and stakeholders in that process. And so I did invite or send an email to the committee chairs letting them know about the meeting today. So we're going to review our progress, determine if they've been completed or there's additional work that's needed, find out if we need additional goals. It would be our hope that we would get the council's strategic plan wrapped up in a year or preferably less, maybe by the time we get to the August GETAC meeting, so that we have a document we can work off of for another 2 years, but certainly no later than November of this year. And of course, the facilitation team that helped us in October of 2011 is still here. So if council has any comments at this time before we get started, I'll entertain those. Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, then I'm just going to review very quickly again give a quick overview of the process. We're going to look at each of the goals, A through J, except for E. Again, we'll come back to E. And really, as you said, we want to determine what progress has been made on each of those goals. As I recollect from our meetings back in 2011, one or more members was assigned to be the lead for each goal and to accomplish the tasks that you all had set out. So I think as we go through each goal, we'll remind you of which members had taken the lead on that, and we'll specifically ask you your thoughts on the goal. For example, have you completed your work? Does additional time needed? Are there additional activities that need to be done? Can the goal be retired? If it's something that you've accomplished and you think it can be retired, we can do that. And then finally, as we go through, are there any initial new goals that you think need to come on board based on the work that you all have done in the past 2 years, or things that you see that are upcoming? And then talk about some action items for those goals. I think if you do have some new goals that you would like to propose, I think this would also be an opportunity to identify one or more council members to take the lead on that. So without further ado, I'm going to move into the goals. On page 3 of your handout, on the bottom slide, are the 10 goals. Just as a reminder, these goals are lettered A through J. We opted not to number them because we did not want to signify a priority order. It's my recollection that the council felt that all the goals were important. They would have timelines associated with them, and so they start from A through J. As I looking in the strategic plan document, in the action plan beginning on page 8, I believe that Chief Riley and Ms. Castaneda Rivas were the leads for Goal A, which was to develop a framework to apply GETAC vision and mission to all decisions made by the council. So I'll ask Chief Riley and Ms. Castaneda Rivas if you all have thoughts on this and the progress that has been made and whether you think this can be retired or needs to continue.
Well, I can say the chair reads the vision and mission statement at the start of each meeting, so we can check that off as an accomplishment. But honestly, unless Nora can add something else, I'm not sure what the procedural change in GETAC and committee meetings prior to voting was actually all about.
And it is my recollection, I think it was similar to how you stated with the vision and mission, that it was an opportunity for you to, and the council, to be reminded of your charge, vision and mission, but also to remind the stakeholders. So,
yes, that was, I think the discussion from the council had to do with before we vote on this item or this task or whatever's being brought before the council, that we redirect and focus back to our mission and vision before we make a decision as to how we vote. So that's... I also wanted to mention, just digress slightly, we're going to continue to work through until 5 o'clock today. Whatever we don't get done today, we're going to pick back up at 11 o'clock roughly tomorrow after the regular council meeting. So, any comments from the council on Goal A?
I think you've met.
We're going to have to grab a microphone.
As far as A is concerned, I think we've pretty well met that one. I mean, every meeting, you read the mission statement too. You also try, with all the decisions, to make sure that we have as much input from not only council members but also our stakeholders. So as far as I'm concerned, how I read that, then I think that one is one that we certainly can check off. I'm real comfortable with that. Is there anybody else's thoughts on it? Are you comfortable with that?
Well, I would just say I agree. I think we've met that goal, but I think it needs to continue. It's certainly not something we want to retire because I think it's been a good thing.
So there's a couple of things that come to mind. And John, you can help us on this. Should we take a council vote or at least a consensus on each goal before we move on, or do you want to do them all at the end? Or
I was actually just thinking the same thing, Chief. I think maybe unless somebody begs to differ, I would suggest just operationally we just do a consensus for each goal, and at the end we can recap where we are and have a vote at that point in time if you're okay with that and the members are.
Is that okay with everyone? Okay. And as far as any stakeholder input on a particular goal, should we pause after council discusses a goal and ask if there's any stakeholders that want input on it, and then we can move on to the next one? Is that okay? So it looks like by the nod of heads we're getting consensus on Goal A. Is there anyone in the audience, any stakeholders that would like to come up and make any comments about Goal A?
I will.
Come
And if you
on
would
down.
state your name for the record.
Yes.
My name is Eric Epley, and
If you would state your correct name for the record,
oh,
sir.
okay.
You're losing your CD there.
Oh well, it won't go too far. The only thing I was going to suggest is I think you're doing a great job as a council, but maybe, and I only bring this up because my city council has been going through the same thing recently, and we got a new elected city council member who is a Malcolm Baldridge specialist for one of our healthcare systems, and so they've been focusing a lot on things like this. Is that the strategic direction and the mission and vision for the city council is now on every committee and council's agenda at the top, as well as the city council's. And I think that may help some of your chairs who are not on the council, such as myself, remember that and maybe remind our committee, as we're doing our work, that is the overall mission. That was the only thing. I think I agree with the comments that were made. I think you've done a good job trying to keep people focused on that, but some committees who aren't on this council, the chairs aren't, may not have that same focus. So it'd be an easy fix.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, any comments from the council? Would the council be agreeable to modifying Goal A to make sure that the vision and mission are read at the start of each committee meeting as well?
Yeah, I agree with that, and actually, he's absolutely right. Dudley's absolutely right. It's on mine, but I'm on the council. But when you look through the other committees, it's not on there, so we haven't extended out to where we should. So I think all of the agendas should have the vision and mission at the top.
Okay. I'm not seeing any nays or opposing viewpoints. So is that good with the council consensus? And maybe we make that item 1B?
Yes, sir.
Is to put that, make sure it's on the committee agendas. And then I'm not sure about the action item start date. I assume, is that going to be today as we're talking about it, or after we've approved the whole plan?
Maybe we could put a placeholder for upon council approval.
Okay.
Just to make sure that it coincides with the actual approval process.
Okay.
So let me just, for the record, let me just note that you think that this goal has worked, that you've been successful in this, that you would like to keep this goal, you would not like to retire it, you think that it needs to stay, but then based on public comment to add to the agenda for committees as well as to the council itself, the vision and the mission, and have that stated at those meetings. Yes, Martha, please.
Well, I think there was a comment about perhaps this would be an ongoing as opposed to a date specific.
This would be ongoing in terms of the timeline.
Okay.
So we could reflect the timeline to be ongoing rather than having an end date.
Okay.
Does it then not move from a goal to a policy or a procedure?
That's a good question.
Because I really think that just overall, this process sets goals, but then to meet those goals, you develop policies and procedures just like you would in the private sector or the public world. So I don't think speaking of it as a goal, because that leaves it, well, you can and you can't do it. You either attain it or you don't. But in a policy, they need to do it. So I would say that as we go through and identify goals, we need to set policies and procedures to meet those goals. Otherwise, it's just pie in the sky stuff.
So maybe what we do on this particular one, Ryan, is we actually make the goal is to make part of GETAC procedural rules that the vision and mission will be read at every committee meeting. Because we do have GETAC procedural rules as a separate document. Does that capture?
Yeah. I just don't want to feel like that we visit this every couple of years and then we say, okay, we've done this goal or we haven't done this goal. With the attrition on the council and things like that, I feel like that we need something to go from, a basis to work from. So wherever we put it, as long as it becomes something like a policy or procedure, then we know it's going to work.
So what I'm hearing from this discussion, but let me confirm, is that you've accomplished this. You want it to continue in a policy or procedure. By that, we're removing this as a goal because it's now becoming a policy or procedure. Is that
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And I'd ask the other members.
May I answer the question, though?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not saying to change it because the mission and vision statements are good, but when do they ever get reviewed and updated or revised?
That will be under Goal E because those came
Yes.
off of the state plan, actually.
Okay.
They're not the council's. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll mark this then when we come back and recap, but for now, we're going to move this to a policy and procedure. This will come off Goal A, but the policy and procedure will be reflective of the discussions that took place here about putting on the committee agenda items and to read out. Are there further comments on Goal A before we move to B as in boy? Okay. So Goal B as in boy, we have Mr. Harbert and Dr. Greenberg. The goal was to increase collaboration between the council and stakeholders involved in EMS trauma. You can see on page 9 of the document, page 9, that there were quite a few action items and some notes, but I would turn it over to Mr. Harbert and Dr. Greenberg for your thoughts and comments of where you stand to date on this, gentlemen.
You want to go first?
Sure. Thank you. We looked at how to include council members, identify roles and responsibility and corroboration, as well as nominating organizations and identifying future stakeholders. If you look down, had some notes that we worked 1A to set meeting dates and times to DSHS on the website sooner. And I think we've actually accomplished that by getting those down. I know in every meeting we always advise them it takes at least 30 to 45 days to get those done. So I think from the standpoint everybody knows, so that we can get those up a little bit sooner. Develop executive summary of work group meetings that the committee chair would present to council. I think we've done those pretty much when every group presents at the regular Friday GETAC meeting. Develop a standard meeting time for committee meetings during the GETAC week. I don't think we've done that. Have we, Dr. Greenberg? I don't remember doing it. One of the things that always comes up, and it continues to come up, is a standardized meeting times. And there's so many pros and cons, because when people are trying to plan when they're going to be here, I can't be here for all the meetings, but I want to be here for this one. It probably would be a nicer thing if everyone knew that EMS is always on Wednesday, education's always on Thursday at a particular slot, so that people could plan. I think we talked about it. I know that I talked to a couple of committee chairs about it, and I think it kind of stopped there. It's probably something we need to pick back up and make that policy as soon as we get a little bit more input. Assign a council liaison to each committee meeting. I don't think we did that. I think we talked about it, and there were some logistical issues from people being able to take off from this, if you weren't a committee chair, to be able to get here and sometimes spend Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, depending upon when your particular group met. Again, I think that was one of the issues, trying to work through that to set those times for people who could not be here the entire time. I don't think we actually finished that one. Investigate the possibility of video, audio webcasting for all GETAC committee meetings and work groups. Well, I think if we look in front of us, check, done. And develop a repository for information and education offerings on the website. I know that DSHS has been kind enough to increase their memory capacity to allow us to post things on the website before meetings. For instance, the information we had during education this morning, it's been out on the website for several weeks. So I think we can check that one off.
Any thoughts from council members related to these items with goal B as in boy?
Just speak.
I think we need to discuss the two items we don't have completed and see if we want to continue to do them. I think the standard meeting times, from best I can get from talking to people, we do want to do that. And I think we should probably ask for public comment or committee chair comment for that. And then the council liaison to each committee, if that's not something we're going to do, I think we should decide we're not going to do it.
Thoughts from the council on those two items still up for completion? Standard meeting times and the liaison?
I would like to take another crack at trying that one more time to see if we can get standardized times. I think some of those times, if we can work through that one, might help with the liaison issue. If people know when they're supposed to be here, one of those might help with the other. I know from time to time, I got an email from Jory Klein earlier, 60 days ago, probably asking us to change times because they had something that came up that they needed done. And that's going to happen from time to time, that is. But I think if we did have some set times for meetings, I think it might be really helpful. And certainly I see the other side of that too, that it does allow people to attend meetings that they wouldn't normally attend, because we kind of vacillate back and forth and have them at different times. But it's probably time that we look at setting some times and trying to work through those.
Can I ask, what is the reluctance to have consistency in those times for those very reasons? I mean, what are the roadblocks that we're running into?
Go ahead. Well, let me. I'm looking at Jane, but there's a couple of comments that are tying into this. One, if you'll remember, one of our other goals was looking at the committee structures and when the committees meet. And since we discussed that, and discussed that. We never reached a conclusion other than to keep the same format that we were at. So therefore, we never really assigned a liaison because we were trying to get the meetings to 2 days so that council members wouldn't have to come in for one meeting on a Wednesday and then come back for a council meeting on a Friday morning. But I do know from working with Jane that the committee meetings move around a lot. So go ahead.
Well, in general, the format is that the committee times roll. So if you're at 9 o'clock, well, that's a bad example. Disaster stood up and said, we will take the Wednesday morning 9 a.m. slot because it is the least desirable of all the committee times. So they're plugged in on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock every time. The following meeting, beginning at 10:30, if you were at that 10:30 slot, say medical directors was at 10:30 on that Wednesday, then the next meeting, generally speaking, that meeting would then roll to the 1 o'clock position on that Wednesday. To try to make it fair, because we don't have an established time for particular meetings. Now, when we've been asked by the committee by the chairs of those committees to give them a particular time because of a particular reason, Dr. Smalling is one that wants a particular time and day because of his schedule in his clinic. And so we've tried very hard to accommodate that. The other piece of it is once we send out the notice to the committee chairs, we do that like 60 days in advance of the meeting. We say, this is your proposed meeting time. Give us your agendas. If there's a problem with the meeting time, please get with a respective committee chair and make some swaps before we have them finalized. Once those agendas go over to OGC and they're out of our hands, those dates and times are pretty much finalized. So that's the way the process has worked. But I know there are some that would prefer to have that designated time. What I can't do is have my staff go around to Dr. Greenberg, Ms. Klein needs to change. Can you accommodate? That has to happen between the chairs and then let us know.
And just to add to that, I think some of the hesitation comes in, you know, if you're scheduled to meet at 10:30 on Wednesday, every meeting date, then if you're a committee chair and on the council, then you're here from Wednesday through Friday, unless you just aren't going to attend. With the rotation, then your committee would meet part of the time on Wednesday, part of the time on Thursday as you rotate through that whole schedule. So part of the time you wouldn't have to be here for the full 3 days, part of the time you will. As far as I'm concerned, it makes me no difference. I committed to do this. I'm going to be here, whether we're here for 3 days or 5 days, it doesn't matter. And I think, you know, I think you could probably get a fairly decent consensus on that. But that's the hesitation, is just the length of time that we have to be here.
Is it, this may have, so I'm new to the committee, so this may have been looked at in the past, but how about making the 2 longer days? Did I just pinch it there?
No. You know, having made that recommendation prior, I wouldn't. Let's not go there right now. You need to make it through one meeting first. We can talk later.
All right, fair enough. Glad I asked.
There'll be others. But thank you for your enthusiasm.
Yes. So, go ahead.
If we set up, Jane, a rotating schedule, as you said, we rotate it through, could that not be our set schedule? That we know that if we're on 9 o'clock, this one, the next time we'll be at 10:30, and the next time we'll be at 1, and the next time we'll be at 3. If that's not the same schedule, but it's a rolling schedule, I think we could probably still accomplish the same thing. You know, when Dudley and I know when we're going to be, we can tell our folks way ahead in advance that in May we'll be here and in August we'll be here. Is that possible?
That's possible. doesn't always work out. When you have, how would we then handle that special request? I need to now get out of that rotational schedule and be at a certain time. How would that work?
And that would have to be between the committee chairs.
Okay.
To then email you and say, hey, Dudley and I need to switch. We talked about it because there's some convention or something going on. We need to switch. Does that happen often?
In general, no, it's not that frequent.
Okay.
But we do have special requests for, I need this date and this time. Can I have it? And so the response from me will have to go back to that committee chair. Please contact the committee chair for the time slot that you desire to have and work that out.
Could we as committee chairs go back to our respective committees in May and look at the rotating schedule and see where we are? And if they're in favor of it, fine. If they aren't, then we just leave it. But that would give us some input from stakeholders. From them too, because they might have something completely different that we're not thinking of that affects them to say, hey guys, for the August meeting and from then on, we're going to look at rotating. Whatever we are this time will be the next one and the next one unless something happens. Does that kind of accomplish both with one? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
That's fine by me. I can give you the schedule and how it works. And once you get to the end of Wednesday and you're the last committee on Wednesday, then the next time you roll over to Thursday. So your day changes. So I think that's something that you'd need to consider with your committee members.
Another thought would be to just go ahead and set the schedule of when the committees are going to meet based on input from the current committee chairs, and just say that in the future you can swap, but this is the schedule, would be something else. But
I strongly agree with that. I think we can probably get the committee chairs together somewhat easily. Disaster's already said what they want. I think Dudley has a preference too, don't you?
Yeah, we'd like to be on Thursday around lunch,
Right.
or after.
Then you got cardiac care committee who's already got a time. I think we already have enough of a skeleton, and whoever doesn't show up to the meeting gets that last time. So
yeah,
Works for me.
Does the council mind if we just go ahead and have Dudley come up, because I don't see any other committee chairs? Come on down. We need to hear your thoughts on where we're going with this. You're okay?
You want me to talk about these goals right now, or?
no.
No, about the meeting schedule on this one. Yes.
Morning.
Yeah.
Good morning.
No, I agree with Dr. Greenberg. I think committee chairs could get together, figure it out.
Dudley, come up.
Oh,
We're
sorry,
streaming.
sorry,
Yeah,
I forgot
that's-
we're on TV. I think the committee chairs could get together and figure it out. I think everybody has somewhat of a preference. When we were doing the how long should we meet and what day should we meet on and all that, some of that stuff in that survey came out about, having an EMS day and a hospital day. And because even though EMS crosses both those bounds, there's some natural selection maybe you could do that with. But I think, again, the committee chairs get together around the table and say, let's see if we can figure this out. And the choice is DSHS sets the rotation, and we're all going to rotate like we have been, but we have an opportunity here to set something in stone if that would help us and go from there. I think it's worth continuing to pursue. I think we just need to get the committee chairs together and for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, and get it knocked out.
Okay.
I certainly like
You got
having
it, Linda. You got to grab them and talk
I s-
close.
Okay, I certainly prefer to have a set day, because I know every Wednesday of committee where I'm going to be at 9 o'clock, and it's just nice to know that. And if you can get the committee chairmans or edict on high, get it done, because right now they're rotating and everybody's happy or unhappy, but they get to the meeting. So I think that's one easily attainable goal.
I agree. I think that you also got to look at the stakeholder input. I mean, if we want a full stakeholder input, it's very difficult on somebody who has a regular set schedule to be able to be that stakeholder person for an organization when they don't know whether they need hotel reservations for a Wednesday night or a Thursday night. And while we'd love to have everybody be here the entire time, it's not realistic. So I think setting the time would enable you to be able to get hotel reservations, such as the May problem that at some point we're going to need to talk about. The hotel reservation thing, the travel reservation coverage back at home, because we still have a day job. So I think it's just it's counterintuitive not to put it on a specific day and time.
We get lots of questions about 6 weeks out, when is this committee meeting? So from our perspective, as far as stakeholders asking us, it would probably be very helpful.
Yeah, I would love to announce at the end of my committee when the next meeting is, date, time, place.
Are there comments on the other action item, assign a council liaison for each committee meeting, or is this something that you think may work its way out a little bit after you've worked on the timing issue for the meetings?
Yeah, I think that's a combination of the timing issue and just when appointments are made.
Okay.
When we made the appointments, that's one of the things we looked at, making the committee appointments.
Okay. Are there any other thoughts from council members on the A, B, C, or D under Goal B before I'll ask Chief Riley if he would like to take other public comment on this one before we kind of make a decision to finalize this one?
I have a question. It's not direct to this, but my question is, are there really minutes to all the committees that we can see? Because when I'm trying to prepare for my meeting here, I try to well, what were they discussing specifically? How do we get that information? I know this is not directly tied to this, but it is a little bit. I think it'd be helpful.
If the committees have minutes, the committee has to create those minutes themselves. So someone needs to be appointed as a secretary to do that. What we do have is that we'll have a committee chair report. And that document is most of the time provided to DSHS after the committee meeting, and we can post it on the website. It is normally very brief with information, but that one pager is about what you get. Some of them are much more detailed, depends on who is supporting that committee. DSHS does not support the committees as far as producing minutes.
Okay.
Hold on to that thought. That may be part of our new strategic plan for council. Is having committee meeting minutes. So is there any other public comment on Goal B? Yes, assign a council liaison for each committee meeting as part of the notes on Goal B.
Please, let's do that. From my city experience, again, I'll go back to that for how an overarching and a bunch of subcommittees work there is I still think there's something to be gained if we have enough participation to where the governor-appointed council members do not serve on the committees but are ex officio members. I think that helps draw a line between the committee work and the council and its decisions, and it avoids conflicts that we've had in the past. Being what that is still, I would like to see council ex officio members on each committee if they're not already council members on there. I think that's beneficial. I think it's huge when we're discussing a topic to have somebody there that's not going to say don't do that because we won't approve that. I mean, that's not the role of that. But to say, remember, this is the direction our strategic plan is heading. This is where we're going. And you need to really make sure what you're talking about is going to line up with that so it'll be easier for the count. It's to provide that input if we start chasing a rabbit down a path or something. So I think it's valuable having you folks on the committees, especially the ones that don't have council members on them, because there are, I mean, mine is one. And I think disaster may be another one. There's some large committees I think would have some benefit for the committee in doing its work and benefit for the council to have a better understanding of the minutia of the work that's being done, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'll close that and come back to council comments and wrap up what we're supposed to do with this goal.
Would you like for me to?
Yeah, would you
give
recap, please?
Give a summary. So it sounds like to me from this discussion that Goal B is a goal probably still needs to stay on the books. Progress has been made. Some accomplishments have been on particular action items, but the two outstanding action items that you would like to continue working on is to develop the standard meeting times for committee meetings during the GETAC week, and then also to assign a council liaison for each committee member is the two major activities. Do you have a suggested action item completion date when you would like to have those completed?
I wonder what the chances the committee chairs could talk within the next 30 days, so we have a set schedule in May, or do we need to actually have that brought to us in May to consider before we establish it?
I'm sure they all need to be in the. Not even sure they all need to be truly in the same room, if we can. Yeah, conference call, or start out with start out with an email. Fill in what's already on the schedule and have people put their preference in.
I think we can do it by email.
By email?
Yeah.
Okay.
That way we have a record of what people really want versus what somebody said.
Okay, so within 30 days or so, the committee chairs would phone conference, email, whatever, and come up with a schedule. So the question is, are they going to bring that schedule to us in May to approve, or is that going to be the May schedule?
We don't approve the schedule now.
I think if we wait, we just keep going and going and we get nowhere.
Okay.
I just think in May it needs to be surfaced and.
Okay.
Yes, let's just do it.
So the result is in May, it comes for a vote.
It's done.
It's done.
Yeah, it doesn't, we're not going to vote on it. The committee chairs will meet within 30 days, or meet.
It's their baby, that's right.
Yeah, and then they'll tell us what the schedule is going to be in May, and that will be the one that we're going to stick with.
Okay.
Is that correct? Okay.
So I think that's all for B as in boy. Jane?
Who takes the lead on the committee chairs meeting?
Do I hear any volunteers?
Does it need to be a
Sure.
Does it need to be a non-chair?
So let the record reflect that Jody will get with the committee chairs within 30 days and come up with the schedule.
It's already got us on there.
You're
so-
right. There you go. Thank you.
No, Jane brought that up. I didn't, so.
Okay.
Actually, my comrade and I will do it together since it was our goal.
It's their goal
We'll
anyways.
get it done.
Yeah.
Harvard and Dr. Greenberg.
If you need
might have
a
it done
conference
in about 20
bridge,
minutes.
please let me know.
What's that?
If you need a conference bridge set up, please let me know.
Okay.
What? Yeah.
So can I just clarify real quickly? We're gonna have this either email, conference call, whatever, within the next 30 days. The committee chairs will choose their time slots that they prefer. Whoever's, the last gets the, yeah.
We have 6.
The tail wagging of the dog.
I think we have 6 that have already chimed in, right? Cardiac Care Committee's not here. Disaster has theirs. You're here. I'm here. Jody's here. Dudley's here. We got most people here already.
So we will start that process then with our May meetings. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We should have it done by
Yeah. What time is it? 2
Yeah.
o'clock?
We can, I think we can finish this in the day.
So the other component of this is assigning a council liaison. Do we wait and see what the new schedule looks like before we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I
Keeping
speak?
in mind too that we have several people that are already on the committees that could act as liaison, but we're not ex officio, so I don't know what you want to do about that.
I was just going to say exactly that. I think that if you are the chair of the committee, that's great, but everybody needs the same type of representation. So even if the chair is a council member, I still think it would behoove the committee to have an ex officio person to kind of be the anchor. And I think that we need to clearly define what the role is on the committee so that there's not any feeling of impropriety or steering wagging the tail with the dog or whatever.
So we'll add some language to reflect some roles and responsibilities to be defined for that liaison role of the council members as ex officio on the committees. Chief Riley, with your permission, I would suggest we move to Goal C. So Goal C is a rather large one. I note that Mr. Phillips is no longer with us. Dr. Beeson, I don't think this automatically means that you are taking his place on this, but you may wish to consider such. But it could be assigned, perhaps. But Judge Deloitte and Ms. Dickerson, you are the two remaining council members who were lead for Goal C. As a reminder, Goal C is council will undertake a review of all committees to define the optimal number of committees based on needs, structure, charges, reporting relationships, membership, and decision-making process. Not an easy charge, but Judge and Ms. Dickerson, I'll turn it over to you all for comment.
I'm fine with that. Go ahead. I think some of these things we've addressed. I don't think we've addressed them as far as policy, but I know one of the things, and I don't know what happened before. I don't remember what happened before, but I know the last 2 years the chair has appointed three members as designated to fill the committees. I know that I happen to have been on that committee the last 2 years, so I know that we have tried to, what's the word that you always use? We've tried to keep that an adequate number where we don't have 25 members on one committee and 3 on another. And I think we've worked on that some. As far as anything set in stone, there's not. Some of the other things that are listed here, I think we will address further with under Goal B. I think we'll take care of some of these issues at the same time. Go ahead.
Yeah, we tried to. There was a thought of consolidating some committees, and when we were thinking about going to the 2-day format, the stakeholders, I think, put it very bluntly that they liked it exactly how it was, and that they felt that each one of their committees was working quite well, and they needed the time. You know, the time can vary with committees, you know, but I don't think that we have made any changes in any of the committees size-wise at all. That was, we tried to go to a 2-day format, and that just didn't seem to work, that they needed more time. Each committee needed more time, and that the stakeholders enjoyed the interaction with the other committees. So we were not able to meet the goal to move it to a 2-day format.
So you're still with 10 committees, but it seems like that was the end result of the process that you went through.
Right.
One of the bullet points on page 10 under define the optimal number of committees, that this would of course be reviewed biannually during the GETAC strategic planning session. Is this something that you want to kind of put back again to review again, or are you satisfied based on the most recent review that 10 is the number?
Yeah.
I feel like that I think we should review it every 2 years. I still think it should be reviewed. I don't think I think this argument is still raw, and I don't know that we want to go there today, has been mentioned earlier. One of the things that I'm not real sure about how it's working is if ideas that go to the committee are being run through the chair, as far as the council chair, and I believe that was one of the goals under this one as well. Is anything that I don't know if our chair is controlling the committee agenda, and that was one of the things that we set forth 2 years ago, is that this group needed to have a little bit more say-so over the committee's agenda. So I don't know that that's happening.
So you're referring to the topic of charges,
right?
Where suggested topics for the committees would be submitted to the GETAC chair, that the chair would then direct the distribution to the appropriate committee, and
Correct.
That you all would have an SOP on this. So it sounds like that, based on what you said, Judge, that's not happening. Is that something?
Well, I'm not sure that it isn't. I don't know. I can't answer that myself.
I'll defer to the council.
I'm sitting right here. I'll let him answer that if he wants to answer.
The answer is it happens by default when the committee chairs do or do not submit the upcoming committee meeting agenda to me to look at. Sometimes they come directly to me and all of the DSHS staff. Sometimes they don't come to me at all, and I get them from the DSHS staff to review. So are we doing it like it's right here or probably intended? No.
Would you like to do it in a more thoughtful process and have an SOP where it would come to you in advance? Is this, because we talked about that, so I just want to see if that's something that's still on the table that's of interest.
I believe that it should be, in my opinion. I know, and I'm going to kind of use the same example that Dudley did. In my commissioner's court, there's not anything that gets on that agenda without my permission or one of the commissioners. And I feel like that anything that, I mean, and I want to say this, whether it's popular or not, the committees work for us. We don't work for them. The committees work for us. And I think we should control what's on their agenda.
I know that some of the committees, ours, we always try to submit ours, and I always send ours to the chair so that he has them early so that we know. And I thought we were all doing that, but I guess not, because I think that's what we had actually talked about doing, was to make sure that not only did the chair know what we were doing, but could answer questions intelligently from others when they asked why something was or was not on the agenda.
So we'll hold that as a potential action item when we do recap, but it sounds like that's something that you would like to see happen in a more standardized process. I will refer back very quickly to page 10 on structure, but I think we covered this under goal B as in boy with regard to the liaison discussion. And Judge Deloish, I think this is what you were getting at, is that goal B may take one of these items, and I just wanted to clarify for the record that we were talking about structure, and that would be addressed by Mr. Harbert and Dr. Greenberg under goal B. Then on page 11, related to goal C, we have a category called membership. It says GETAC chair will appoint an executive committee to appoint committee members. This committee shall include the GETAC chair, a committee chair, and other GETAC members. So this is related to the council appointing the members for the committees. Judge, would you and Ms. Dickerson like to comment on that?
I know that is happening. Okay. I don't know if it's written down on paper, but I know the last 2 years that's what we've done.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, we do not have a written SOP.
Is a written SOP, is that valuable because of the continuity of the council and future membership, so folks will know what you all decided and voted upon?
I'm like Ryan, I think that should be put in policy.
Okay.
That way we can take it off of this strategic plan. I think that should be made a part of policy, that's how we fill the committee spots.
Other thoughts on that from council members?
Done.
Seeing some nods. Okay. Then let me move then to the final major item on goal C, decision-making process. Seek to achieve consensus at the committee level on issues requiring a vote before submittal to the full council. Committees may address issues at interim meetings, and committee votes on recommendations to council shall be taken at quarterly committee meetings. Your thoughts on the progress on these items or relevance of these items?
I know that the committees are still, or some of the committees are still meeting. I mean, between, and I think that's part of what's covered there. And that's about all I can speak to personally. I know that there are some of the committees that are meeting between meetings.
Any committee chairs have thoughts on this? So with the permission of the chair, I would just ask for open discussion on goal C. Any other comments that you have, maybe before taking public comment?
Any other comments?
I feel like I'm or pulling the mic up anyway. at the risk of monopolizing the microphone here for a second, I know that we developed a policy, or at least it was my understanding that the policy would be that trying to think how to phrase it, issues at interim meetings would not be voted upon, since there was not truly an opportunity for public input, which could sway the members one way or the other. And so when it says that they may address issues at interim meetings, that does not mean they're going to come to any sort of finality, minus the public comment period. We had talked about that, and I think that we kind of corrected that as well,
I think
right?
they're still supposed to come back to their committee at this.
During this
Yes.
prescribed time to
During the
take any
quarterly
votes after public comment.
Yes.
Okay, if and
That
when
was
an
the
SOP
intent.
needs to be developed, that needs to be clearly articulated, because you would hate that somebody would have to chase down a committee in the interim to be able to have meaningful input.
Any other council input on Goal C? Public comment on Goal C.
I'll say that from my attendance at the committees and sending folks to some of the interim committees, I think that piece is being done very well. I think all the committees are more mindful of doing that at the regular meetings. I haven't seen any issues, haven't heard of any issues. Nobody's really talked about that. On a couple of the other pieces, I personally like the involvement of more people in the committee selections. I would encourage the council to have some discussions about a time prior to new member selection of a time for committee chairs or committees to request if they feel they need to be larger. We have a couple of committees that are larger than the standard. I personally would like mine to increase by a couple or four, just because we have a lot of interest and a lot of people willing to serve. And at this point, to get new people to serve, we have to rotate off folks who are participating, involved, hardworking members of the committee, which we try to do, and that's a difficult decision every year, is to decide who's going to stay and who's going to go for a year before they can come back. We represent 1,000 providers in the state with 11 people, and even though I think 13 or 15 or 17 would probably not increase that percentage that much, it would give a few other people an opportunity. In the last 5 to 6 years when we've taken applications, I don't think we've ever had less than 20 new people wanting to be a part. And to pick one or two out of that group every year is kind of tough and maybe discouraging for some folks. So I would like to ask the council, maybe committees come up with justification as to why they need to increase at a point before we have the applications, and allow the council to make that decision. The other piece on the agenda setting, my understanding as a committee chair was that we would, if we knew at the time of our meetings, like I'll do for you tomorrow, we have 2 or 3 things we want to come up and talk about that are items that have floated up since we got done with our report in November. But the other one was that if other things come up, or if you have a lot of things you're working on, I know disasters this way, usually their agenda's 2 pages long and they get as far through it as they can every time, was that those would be sent to the chair and then he would approve those and send those on. I know the last couple of times I've probably neglected to include him on that, just because the deadline approaches and I'm trying to gather input from our committee and other people who have contacted me about needing time on the agenda. And I got Phil emailing me saying, it was yesterday, where's your agenda? I know you're meeting, come on, send it. You know how high pressure Phil can be. And so that was a joke. Anyway, and I probably neglected to put your name on there, but I do believe that the committee chairs are attempting to do that. Or at least you're getting that notification. So, and I think the other piece of that is if there are things out there that we feel are not going down that path, when those agendas get published, I, for one, would be willing to engage in that conversation with somebody if they're curious about why we're going down a path that wasn't discussed at the previous council time. So it's just a lot of times things come up. This time we're very fortunate because we were kind of taking a breath from our big report. The EMS committee's got some things that some folks want us to look at this year, and so I'll be bringing those to you to make sure that that lines up with the direction you think we need to go. But that's not always the case. But we're trying to get into that as best we can.
I have another public comment. Please go ahead and state your name for the record.
Justin Boyd, part of the EMS committee. And I think a lot of what I hear is great as far as the anticipation and the planning on what you want on agendas and how you want to make sure that we're all achieving the mission and the vision. The only thing I would ask is that you don't handcuff yourself so much that you can't change for something that comes up unexpectedly. In the case you're talking about Chief Riley being the one who approves it, if something happens to Chief Riley, what happens at that point? If he becomes incapacitated, you set yourself up. And I think that also if you're appointing liaisons to each committee, that liaison report and even the committee chair report is going to be giving you the information that you guys know where you're going. Participation from you guys in the committees, because you're exactly right, the committees are here as a supportive cast and a supportive role for this organization and this group, and I think that's great. That requires participation on the other side too, to make sure in an oversight type manner that we are headed down that path the correct way. So I like the ideas, I like the conversation, just don't put it in a situation where we back ourselves in a corner, because it is about the mission and the vision. This is for the entire state of Texas.
Thank you. When it comes to the topics for the chair to review, just so council has an idea, basically I'd look at the agenda when I get them. Sometimes they are in advance. Sometimes they just come as a bulk. They'll hurry up and not hurry up and review, but yeah, sometimes hurry up and review because the committee chairs have been slow in getting it into DSHS. So no negative comment intended on that. But what I'm doing is I look at the agenda, and if it's supposed to be all fruit and there's some Brussels sprouts on there, then I raise an eyebrow and I call somebody or I find out what was the intent, or so there is some communication. But I can say for the most part the agendas are fairly routine, if you will. They're chair reports, or there's something that has been discussed by this council, or from Dudley's case, I look at it and, well, yeah, he stood before us and said they needed to talk about that at the last council meeting. So, but is that happening 100% of the time? No, it's not.
May I suggest to the chair and to the council, Dr. Tyrock had noted earlier the issue about committee minutes. Is this something that you would like to put as an action item under this agenda as it relates to committees, even though this specific goal is related to review of committees, or is that something you'd like to defer as we talk about new goals? I didn't know if you might think that might be fit under this particular goal. And if you think it's worth adding as well, too, you had noted that, so we just made a note of that.
I think it's worth adding, but I'm just not sure we should talk about it.
Okay. So we'll defer discussion then. If you all are okay, we'll bring it back up again as we talk about new goals. So what I'm hearing then with the discussion is defining the optimal number of committees. This is something that would need to continue to occur on a biannual basis. So maybe that stays within the goal. It sounds like the structure that is moving to that's part of that liaison piece. So it sounds like that maybe this is no longer a part of goal C, but it really is goal B and the liaison piece. The charge is, it sounds like this is happening by default, but that either you need to have a process or a policy in place just to codify that. It sounds like for the membership for the committees that this is something that you would like to have as put as a policy rather than as continuation of a goal. And it sounds like the decision-making process, it sounds like that this is pretty much happening, but you would like to maybe have that as a policy as well, too. So the majority of things, based on this conversation, I think I heard you would like to move to policy. One comes off, and it sounds like the only thing that would remain is that continual review of the number of committees. But I'll ask the council if that's a fair. recap.
Comments from council? Okay.
Then we'll move to Goal D as in David on page 13. I believe we have Ms. Schultz, Dr. Greenberg, and Mr. Matthews. Goal D, develop a process to improve the operation of GETAC committees. There is a note, institute an annual council meeting with committee chairs, possibly to coordinate with GETAC meeting EMS conference in November, but I'll turn it over to the council members responsible for this for your review and comment.
We've got a good discussion going at the moment. Would it be possible to have actually this worksheet put up on the screen?
Yes. If you could bear with me just 30 seconds.
Yeah, you just sent it to us. You emailed that to us just a minute ago, right? Yeah, it hit my email.
I see our stakeholders are looking up there and not following our conversation very well, so I wanted to, if we can just pause and put this up, that would be great.
Oh, there you go. No, you don't want that. Nice try. Anybody seen the Lego ones? Wasn't it awesome? Everything is awesome.
It's amazing how you can't pull it together at all until the very end.
Yeah.
It actually has a plot.
It does have a plot.
Oh, yeah.
Took my minute, that's good. The Lego movie. Although we're endorsing it over the internet at this point.
Yes. It's goal M.
Should be goal L.
Chief Riley, I'm looking at the procedural rules for GETAC.
Mm-hmm.
Under committee chairs, it says committee chairs will ensure that minutes of the committees are kept.
That don't say that in there.
Yeah, it does, honey. And this is from 2009.
Would that not be the only way to go about open meetings?
Dudley, we'd like to have those by May.
Retroactive?
It's pretty organized, at least it has been since the last committee.
Does it say committee chair should keep the minutes?
Yeah. Ryan really hit the nail on the head that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be moved into those procedural rules, regulations, whatever. GETAC procedures, and I know they haven't been adjusted in a long time, and probably if you keep looking, there's probably a couple other things we're not doing according to those rules.
Maybe a review those.
That might not be a bad idea.
Well, that may be the goal, is review the GETAC procedural rules. It may already actually be up there. Okay.
So
thank you for putting that up there.
You're welcome, sir. So hopefully folks, who are viewing on the webcast can see as well. And we do have some extra copies here for folks here in the room if they need to. So Goal D, again, is to develop a process to improve the operation of GETAC committees. Ms. Schultz, Dr. Greenberg, and Mr. Matthews. So I'll turn it over to you all for comment on progress and updates and the like.
Yeah. We haven't met. I'll be the first to say, we haven't met and talked about this. I don't think we can make it up either. But, I mean, this is very similar to the other things that we're talking about. And I think, again, we put this off waiting for the decision that was made about changing meeting times. So, again, I think this is why it's important for us to get back together, because we need to get back on this topic. We haven't done anything with it.
And if you look at the bottom, it's actually calling for an annual meeting with the committee chairs. And that, I don't know that has ever happened as long as I've been around.
And it did not happen at this last conference.
No.
But I think it's a goal worth continuing on with to try to do at the next conference, absolutely.
And certainly I don't mind making that an annual event, but I think stacking one more thing into the conference would probably also be kind of counterintuitive. Maybe we could do it in conjunction with one of these meetings or something. That's away from the conference.
Well, and then there's number 3, which we discussed, was mechanism for the council to meet prior to committee chairs. I think that's meet with committee chairs prior to the GETAC meeting so that we could give them direction. And it goes back to the judge's comment about the committee's supposed to be working for the council. So I guess that we should probably open that up for discussion as well, if that is still a goal.
Excuse me.
And that was for each committee chair to receive their charges for their committee meeting based on their agendas, and that, again, went along with changing the whole meeting schedule to start with a council meeting and then end with a council meeting.
But are we not, in a way, doing that at the end of each report when they bring forward items that they want to be added to the agenda and/or voted on in the next general council meeting? I mean, every time they come to the microphone, are we not kind of conferring?
Because they're guiding us, we're not guiding them, and that was the problem. When they come up here at our meeting on Friday morning, they're telling us what they are doing instead of us telling them what they should be doing. Now, I agree with what Dudley said and what Justin said earlier, that, yeah, we can't, if there's something that comes up, okay, I don't have an issue with that, but there needs to be, we need to know why is that an issue with them? This is Mike's opinion, but why is that an issue? And, there may be other committees here that are talking, and that was one of the things that was brought up at the last strategic planning session. Dudley may have something that had come up with his meeting, but yet Jody's got the same issue that's come up in his, and they don't even know that yet. And that gives us an opportunity as the council to say, Dudley, why don't you and Jody get together and work on that while you're here this week? I mean, that was part of the purpose of trying to have a meeting ahead of time to help direct some of that and to help manage some of that flow. Now, that was the discussion from earlier.
So the idea, again, is to meet ahead of time so you can have those discussions and kind of set out the charges. Is it necessary, and my sense from kind of over the last 2 years that one of the reasons that may not have happened is because of the timing issues and getting everybody on a set schedule, but also the fact that the council may not be here at the very beginning. If you still feel that this is important, is there another mechanism to make this happen, a conference call or some other type of means of communication ahead of time rather than a physical meeting? So it's just an idea, and if so, would you have a suggestion, or do you think that in order for that to be successful, it really needs to be the face-to-face?
Could we not institute some sort of an agenda committee that had rotating council members on it? That way you're not meeting a quorum, so therefore it's, you kind of stay away from the legalities of the open meetings situation, because really the meetings themselves are going to be open. The setting of the agenda isn't necessarily, at least in my humble opinion, wouldn't necessarily constitute an issue with open meetings.
Hope not. Yeah, maybe we could do it at different, and instead of doing it at every quarterly meeting, just do it at 2 of them. Or, like you were saying a while ago, not do it at the conference. And I agree with that, but to maybe do it at a committee chair's meeting with maybe 2 or 3 of us, and like you said, rotate it around, but maybe instead of doing it every time, do it every other time.
But that doesn't fulfill the purpose, I'm afraid, of directing the committee chairs as far as their charges go for each of their meetings according to their agenda items and our mission and vision.
Right, that's what I was saying. I wasn't advocating necessarily biannually. I was saying that even if it was every time we met, if it was a committee chair meeting that took place, obviously it would have to almost be a rooster meeting in the morning prior to the start of it, but you could have a limited number of people that rotated so that we wouldn't have to, it could be quarterly, it could be biannually that it rotates 4 people. Obviously, unfortunately, the chair would probably have to be the one constant, and have just a committee that set the tone for the rest of the week, derived from our membership. And then potentially that way, if you have to come in and do your 2 or 3 meetings on that committee, then you do that, but then you're not saddled with that the whole time, since our meetings are continuing to kind of be long over 3.5 days.
And again, from my perspective, we're not talking about controlling the ideas generated by the committees. We're talking about coordinating them so that they're more efficient and more effective, and the right committees hear them, so we don't have to go, well, this meeting, well, now we have to wait because it should have gone to this other. It was more of a coordinating and improving efficiency and effectiveness as opposed to ideas. So, the other thought is, and this would not be popular, is to meet after the council meeting on Friday. Most of the committee chairs are here to give their report anyway. Just hang on, and when the council meeting's over, we'll have a huddle and say what's happening the next meeting. I don't know. I know legal counsel's squirming, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If we do a better job at getting the agendas to Jane and the DSHS, could this not kind of take care of that? Because then we could see them much earlier, and if there's a coordination issue, then we could do it without actually having them meet to look at them. Because if I know that I can go out and look 45 days ahead of time and see the agenda, what is it we're trying to coordinate that's not on there that we couldn't see and handle with an email?
And I think Jody may be onto something there. I was thinking of a logistical thing, because Judge, I don't think we're trying to do anything on our own. We're trying to do the business of the council, but sometimes things come up, and like I said, tomorrow I'm going to have, I don't know how many it is. I think it's 3 different things that the committee has brought forward and the public brought forward in our committee that they wanted us to talk about. So I'm going to bring those here, and there's plenty of opportunity when I bring those here for you guys to say yay or nay and why and get all those questions answered. What I'm almost curious about is when we get our requests for agendas from Phil or whoever that's going to come from, and we get those requests for agendas, that instead of just hitting reply and sending our agenda in, please don't kill me, everybody gets 180 emails a day like I do, but hit reply all and say, here's the agenda items approved by GETAC last time that we're going to discuss. These are the agenda items that have been brought to me since the last meeting that we would like to have placed on our agenda. You're going to see what I'm talking about, and I'm going to see what you're talking about. He's going to see it. It's going to be broken out. This is the stuff the council's already approved. This is the stuff I have to look at. That gives me the opportunity to go, Jody, you're going to be talking about painting bulldogs purple. That's a really big topic for my committee, too. Can we get together on it?
And that's why we do this by email, and it's done.
And it's not open meetings thing because we're just the chairs. Yeah. Nobody on our committee's doing that.
Right.
And the chair is looking at that going, yeah, why don't you 2 guys, or no, Dudley, back off. Just because you have bulldogs don't mean you're going to paint yours purple. Jody's going to take care of this. But it gives him that chance to direct that at the pleasure of the overall council, and then that comes up at the following meeting. Because rarely are we going to talk about anything for one set of meetings, decide on it, and move on. I mean, we just don't move at that kind of speed. So, but that may be a way to use that technology piece to share that information ahead of time. Nobody has to come in early, and it allows the committee chairs and the chair of the council to see that.
Okay. I guess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said absolutely, because I think trying to find another time to meet for another 20-minute deal is going to be much easier electronically.
We are obviously in public comment now, so if anybody else has public comment they would like to speak, please state your name.
My name is Alicia Warren, and recently just became McDonald. I do serve on the Air Medical Committee. It would be nice at the end of the main council meeting, after open comment, when the public can come up and ask for things to be worked on after the committee reports, after the votes, to actually make those charges by committee then. Say, okay, let's start, A through Z, Air Medical. This is what you say you need to have on your next agenda. We had public comment indicating that maybe this other committees, why don't you work on it with them? And then the chairs now have 3 months to say, hey, maybe we should have a joint meeting, maybe we, and to start coordinating that. And then on the agendas, you can maybe even put down what you were charged to go over, and then, like you were talking about, coordinating new items that have come up in between, whether they be legislative or whatever. Because they do come up in between, and so your agendas are broken down into your charged items and then the miscellaneous stuff that comes up. So,
Thank you.
Justin Boyd, and maybe that was a question I had for the judge was, because you're going to be approving the agendas that existed, and there's some time in there that y'all see those. And do you want to facilitate a conversation in person with this group, or is it just that you see the overall commonalities among agendas that you can give that direction? And if that's the case, if it doesn't require a meeting in person and you can give those directions via email because you're in contact with them, is that a way to achieve the objective in which you're trying to look at?
The issue that come up in the last strategic planning meeting that we had 2 years ago, or whenever in 2011, the issue was that to answer in the brief answer is, if it can be handled with an email, I'm all for it. And I have no issue with that. But I don't like to see the committees go down a rabbit hole that the council has no idea where they're at, where they're going, or what they're doing, and that we have had that issue in the past, and I've been here since GETAC started, and I've seen that happen. And the council, we've got a committee that's going full force after something here, and then you ask a member of the council what's going on, and they don't even know that it's going on, and that's what we're trying to prevent. And I think, but to answer your question, I certainly don't have a problem with us taking care of something with an email that we would normally have to meet for. That's not, as long as it accomplishes the objective. I don't have a problem with that.
One of the problems that's been brought up.
Thank you.
And it's another concern across just all of the council's business is our lack to communicate because of the fear of open meetings. And I think that sometimes open meetings is like a looming storm on the radar, and it may not actually be nearly as bad as what we really intend. And so sometimes we take the most safe route just to stay well clear of it. And I think that needs to be something. This is just one item that potentiates the problem that we do not communicate as a council until we sit in this room, and and everybody cringes, and we're not deciding business, but this is clerical. And so I think that we need to figure out a mechanism to collaborate on clerical things, not on decision-making processes. I understand open meetings is very important, but I feel like that at this point it's this invisible handcuffing force that has kept us from being able to be collaborative.
I absolutely agree. I think most of these workarounds we're worried about, it's because of the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, so for clarification, we're going to do phone conferences with the council chair and the council vice chair and the committee chairs. As I recall, we chose not to do any of those because there was the potential for violating the Open Meetings Act. Is that fair to say? I believe we had comment from DSH's counsel that that's probably not a good idea, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, what you have to think about is in the open meetings, any type of deliberation is supposed to be done in the public view. So a discussion, emails back and forth, or a discussion of this group that is outside of the public purview is considered deliberation. To me, deliberation is a much more intense, involved, kind of like last night. That was deliberation. That was intense. Deliberation is a little bit more formalized, but that is not the interpretation of the open meetings. So that's my only caution to you, is that there are some things that you can do, but if you have a quorum and you're discussing business that should or would be normally discussed in an open meetings, or that the public could be interested in, then you're probably treading on the wrong side of the fence.
So the more specific question is it legal for the chair and vice chair of the council to have a phone conference with all of the committee chairs at the same time and talk about things that need to be put on an agenda?
As long as the group does not constitute a quorum of this council, then you are okay. Because Dr. Greenberg is your vice chair. And then, isn't it? No?
Ronnie
Okay.
Stewart was.
Ronnie Stewart was, that's right. Okay. You would have Dr. Greenberg, and you would have Shirley, and you would have Jody. So that's 3 of your council members that would be on it, and plus you. So that would be 4. That would not constitute a quorum of this council, assuming that all of your positions are filled, which they are at this time. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're not? Okay.
Yeah, and run it by legal. Judge, I'll probably speak out of turn here, but we have an audit committee. We have 5 council members on our city council. 2 of the council members serve on the audit committee. It's not posted. It's not Open Meetings Act because they're not making decisions. They're reviewing the audit with the auditor and the city manager and that kind of thing. I'm sure you do similar things with your county commissioners. I mean, if you don't have, you've got 4 and 1, I'm assuming. So if 2 of you get together, I mean, I kind of agree with Ryan. It's almost the thunderstorm thing. There's a cloud over there. Let's not go anywhere right now because it may rain in the next 2 or 3 days. We can't be scared of it. We need to understand how it works, and maybe that's what the problem is we always go to legal and see what they say. But
Dudley, that is our legal counsel are the ones that instruct us and give us how we are to proceed. So for DSHS and for this council, that is where we would go to get that advice as to what we can do.
But if I went to dinner tonight with Ronnie and Vance and me and Eric, and we talked about something GETAC's talking about, that's not a violation of open meetings.
No, it's probably would not be. That's not a quorum.
Okay.
Well, just to clarify.
But
Right.
That's a quorum. If it's not a quorum of this group, correct. If it's not a quorum of this group, would that be
Okay.
right, Renee?
So let me get us back to the point a little bit here. The point is, can the committee chairs and 2 or 3 council members have a phone conference and not have to post that meeting? Would we be in violation? That's the question, because that's what I believe.
Can't they be serving as chairman and not as council members?
You're a council member no matter what.
No loophole.
When you go home, you're still a council member.
Hi, Don.
So if we don't have an answer off the top of somebody's head, we can always come back.
But we're not having a meeting, we're having a discussion.
But are you having?
We're going to need people to come to the microphone so people can hear, please.
Please, step on up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was never like this till you got on here. I just wanted you to know that.
He's going to answer this and leave.
Okay, so the question is this. We have various committees, and each one of them have a chair. Some of those chairs, 3 of them are also council members. Does it violate the Open Meetings Act for the chair and maybe the vice chair of the council to have a phone conference with the 10 committee chairs? As there would not be a quorum of the council during that conference.
And probably not a quorum of any of the committees.
No.
Okay.
Correct.
Discussing agendas.
Yeah. But I mean, if there's not a quorum, when there's a quorum and the quorum is going to deliberate, and deliberate's defined as, you don't even have to be talking. Y'all could all sit here and just receive me talking to you, receiving information or whatever, then that's deliberating. So if there's not a quorum, then that doesn't have to be posted and so forth, and there's not a quorum meeting, and so I think that would be okay.
But my question is, if the council, let's say 3 from the council and each chair was there. And they were discussing what was going to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
And the 3 chairs, are they members of the GETAC? That's 6, and there's 6 a quorum. I haven't done my math.
No, it'd be 8.
Okay, so it's
Okay,
under a quorum.
But they're making the decision of what goes on at our next meeting, what will be discussed. They are making a decision.
Well, they're probably giving feedback to the chair of GETAC, who decides what's going to be on the agenda ultimately.
Okay.
And you're saying they decide,
Yeah,
in
the
a way,
chair
kind of,
decides.
you're voting,
Well, the
but you may
chair-
decide, well, no, that item number 5 you're talking about, well, we're going to save it for the next month, so.
So then maybe the burr in the saddle is the fact that we called those meetings, I think we called those an executive committee meeting in the GETAC procedural rules. Is that what the real issue is?
It's not the council. The council has a problem with Open Meetings Act. That's the problem. And you just said, I can't believe you were on the same side of this. In the history of man.
That can happen.
We were
But
going right
no,
down
the
this road.
key is quorum.
Right.
So, and then I don't want to get into another one called the walking quorum, where there's been a couple of council members with the city, particularly, what is this, Austin, who would have breakfast under a quorum, and then one of those guys would then have a meeting with 2 other councilmen later and talk about whatever, and that's that. But that's, the meeting you're talking about doesn't sound like there's going to be another one the next day and all that. It's not a quorum, so doesn't sound like you're going to have a second and third one, so I think it doesn't fall into walking quorum.
So the GETAC procedural rules says that there's an executive committee with the chair of council and the vice chair of council. I'm fairly sure it says that, and the 10 committee chairs.
Yeah, and the 10 committee chairs, you're saying 3 of those guys are with GTAC, so that comes to 6, but if it takes 8.
We won't
to make a
ever
quorum,
have a quorum of the council.
5, but it takes 6 to make a quorum, or it takes 8. So then you're underneath a quorum,
Okay.
so GTAC has not met.
Okay, so the
So
executive
it's a
committee, as defined by GTAC procedural rules, can meet via phone conference.
Yeah,
Because
when
it's
you say
not-
executive committee, I mean, that's not GTAC.
Right.
It's a working group.
And I know you have 10 committees, and you've got rules that all the 10 committees will follow open meetings, but I don't think you've said the executive committee has to, so.
Okay, thank you.
And they're not GTAC, so.
Okay, in the procedural rules, the executive committee consists of council chair, the vice chair, GTAC council members that serve as the standing committee chairs. That's what it says in the procedural rules. The total number of persons should not result in a quorum of the advisory council. So it doesn't talk about committee chairs unless it just says standing committee chairs that are also GTAC council members.
It says that's because we never had committee chairs that were not on,
Right.
when those were written, we had 3 committees or something. We had like
Yeah.
trauma, no, I mean, really, the AirMet, Shirley was
They
you
were
guys
all work
were
groups.
the standing committee chairs. We didn't have committee chairs like Dudley, who was not on council, but was the committee chair.
So it sounds like as part of this goal, y'all help me out. We're talking about a mechanism for the council to meet prior to committee chairs, but we can't really make that happen, I don't think.
Not in a quorum.
So, Mr. Chairman, so let me, if I may just recap what I think I'm hearing with this. It seems like that you still want to look at instituting an annual council meeting with the committee chairs to be determined, and that you also then have put forward, and it sounds like from the opinion by DSHS Legal, that the chair, the vice chair, and the committee chairs could meet for a telephone call, because it doesn't, even if you don't call it the executive committee, it doesn't sound like you're in violation of quorum. So is that something that you would like to put forward as an action item to develop an SOP on to make that happen, to help achieve this mechanism for providing feedback and coordination with the committee chairs?
Yes.
One thing we might add there is make it the chair's responsibility to make sure that there's not a quorum of the council. And I think, I'm not speaking for him, but I'm sure he would do that. But that somebody needs to be responsible. But, you know, as you said earlier, that down the road, if, say now, 6 of us are committee chairs, or 6 of the people sitting up here are committee chairs, now we've got a quorum, we need to rethink that at that time. But I think it should be the chair's responsibility to make sure we don't have a quorum.
And perhaps the SOP could stipulate, of course, that, you know, that all meetings would be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, and that would put the responsibility on everybody because you would not want to violate that as part of your policy.
But you wouldn't want to state that all meetings have to follow the Open Meetings Act, because then we'd end up having to post all of our meetings.
So it would be worded appropriately to make sure that you were in compliance. But
Well, yeah, all meetings with a council quorum would
Yes.
follow the Open Meetings Act.
Correct.
We can put that as a statement in there.
Correct.
Okay.
And I do think that we should work towards a name of that group, amoeba, steering committee of some sort. That way it's clearly definable for people going forward. They say, well, I hear so-and-so met. No, that was the XYZ committee. And I wouldn't even use the word committee, honestly. But
Committee chairs,
Working group.
yeah.
Committee chairs, working groups, that's exactly what it is.
Right, so to stay away from the word committee, and then that way it's clearly definable to anybody that would challenge based on an open meetings issue.
Okay.
So with the permission of the chair, would we like to move to the next goal?
Do we have any other public comment on Goal D? Okay. Any council comment on Goal D? Then we will move on.
Yes, sir. I would like to just ask the chair, we did have built in a break at this point in time. Would you like to continue on, or would you like to take a break?
It's up to council. I'm more for moving on, because when we get to Goal E, that's where we need to spend a lot of time, I think. So
Let's break it, goalie.
Right before goal E?
Right before Goal E. Okay, thank you.
So-
Well, yeah, break before we discuss the last goal, which will be Goal E.
Okay. So we'll move now to Goal F as in Frank. Goal E, of course, we'll come back to. Just as a reminder for the process for this, the council members are going to have a discussion, and they will call for public comment. If folks could remember that public comment will be called for rather than shouting out answers, I think that might help our process be a little bit more efficient if that meets with approval of the chair. Okay.
Yes.
So Goal F is improve the process of communication between DSHS and GETAC. Mr. Click and Mr. Matthews have that. Mr. Matthews, you were pretty busy and volunteering for some of these, I believe. So I'll turn it over to you, because I believe Mr. Click is no longer.
Well, yeah, and
he's just not.
I was voluntold.
Oh, is that right? I'm sorry.
I was voluntold on this one.
That's why you show up to the meeting.
You know, and I would have, believe me, I would have rather been there than where I was at. So as far as the communications, I think this is exactly parlays on our last conversation, so we really don't need to surround it and beat it again. But I do think that we need some clearly definable mechanisms for the collaboration of the board members. I know that we don't want to violate open meetings, but I think that we're quartering or worse the collective interest and all the experience and everything that we all bring to the table by just being able to have, you know, abbreviated conversations in this kind of a format. So I know open meetings is an important part, but just like we just witnessed a workaround, I think that we need to continue to put our heads together to figure out a way. One of those things would be there was a discussion by me and a couple of other folks that perhaps the folders are nice, but I'd love to get this information a week or more out, potentially digitally, that then I can go and seek out answers so that we're more educated, including minutes, those kind of things. It is the digital age, so we could email that stuff out and save a tree. And then the other thing that I would say would be, again, on that, we had in the past used USBs to get some large documents. I think it would be smart for us to be able to get those documents when we arrive, potentially, if we didn't bring them in our email in a USB format. That way you can take notes in line, and you know, most people have iPads or something like that, so might facilitate a little bit better communication of the information. Those would be my only questions. concerns.
Actually, that's something that we've been talking about internally for quite some time. We would like to move to all electronic. That's what we're trying to do within our office. So there's a couple of different ways we could do it. Those documents that are small enough that we could email, or we could set up a place on your website where you could actually come and pull down your documents for the coming meeting. And that would include your agenda and any resource documents. That would probably be the simplest.
Dropbox or something like that works really well for that.
Right. I'm not sure that we have the ability to do the Dropbox within the agency, but I think we can work it out where we can do something similar. We might be a notice that we could send out an email with a link and say, here, it's ready, go get your documents. It's there.
Yeah. And you can do that now. I usually pull down the agendas.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you have to do them one at a time.
Right.
If it could be a zip file or, download all at once, it'd be better than having to pull in 10 different agendas and 10 different membership
Right.
lists.
Right.
And the agendas, I agree, I can go look at the agendas, and that's usually when I first try to figure out when the meeting times are, so hopefully that's in our rearview mirror. But also there's a lot of supporting documents that end up in our folders, and I realize that some of those may be placed there days or minutes prior to pickup, but it would be nice to be able to have as much supporting documentation as well, because it's been very frustrating to feel like that we're handcuffed to make a decision kind of on the spot without really any deliberation, because again, I feel like that the cloud of the open meetings has pretty much kept it to a very segmented opportunity to really investigate a topic, and then we're voting on it without really a good basis of understanding in some cases.
Right. Well, as we get resource documents, and we don't always get them in with the agendas, we try to identify the things on the agendas where we need resource documents and then go back to the chair and ask for those. If we don't get the response, we may not get that response until the day before, Ryan, and then we get them up. So that, I don't know how to get around that. But we can, as soon as the agendas are finalized, which would be generally at least 10 days out, we could have the agendas, the schedule, and the resource documents that we have at that point in time. We could have that ready for you to go and pick up.
Okay.
Would there be any reason why we couldn't mandate that resource documents have to be in 10 days before the meeting, or it's not discussed?
I would love for you to do that.
I think some sort of a time frame is realistic. Again, I appreciate the extreme effort that you guys put out. Please don't take it as a derogatory towards your efforts. I just think that when you're entrusted to represent a part of our overall system, it's very hard to collaborate with even our constituents to understand the situation, for somebody to give us feedback so that we can truly represent the facet that we're here to represent. When it comes down to the day two before, even sitting in the committee meetings, I don't know that you can get a full, complete understanding and be able to have discussions with people and those, your constituency prior to coming to the meeting. So anything that can forward that to where we're more, it's not an individual decision, but it's one that was collaborative with our constituents. I think that's really important.
Okay. I don't know if this is the right time or not, but since we have council in the room, the council's council in the room, how can we deal with things that come up between that 30-day time period and the meeting? Yeah.
Well, I guess like or documents that come up in that time, but I would think that everyone knows that 3 months out you're going to have a meeting, and at the end of the GETAC meeting there's usually a discussion. I think these are the items we might have next. Does everybody else want to put on? I would think that a good chunk of the documents are going to be discussed. Pretty much everybody knows. They're going to come from GETAC or committee people, and so there's some things we put forth, I guess, but I think it's usually the documents that are coming from other people. So if everyone keeps that in mind, the sooner you can get them to us, 30 days out, so we can post them 30 days out or 45 days out. But if there's some that come in on the 12th day or 15th, I think Jane was saying we'll post them. But that gets back to what you were just saying, then there's not enough time to digest it if it's an important document with a lot of material, and then you'd like to have it. But unless y'all already kind of know what those documents are, you're already reading them, but the sooner the better. I think, is that fair, Jane? Most of the documents we post are usually from other people that give them to us to post?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's not...
My question is a little bit different. I mean, we've had the issue, I think a few years back, it was about the flu. Between the time we had to turn in our agenda items, we had a flu epidemic. There was some direction DSHS wanted. We didn't have time to put it on the agenda. We didn't have time to post anything, but they wanted some direction. I think we would break the Meeting Act's rules by doing that. But is there a way to do, if you would, emergency business from between posting it between that 30 days and when we meet?
And by they, you're saying they wanted direction, meaning DSHS wanted direction from GETAC or something?
Correct.
Or?
Is there a way we can do that?
Oh, I'd have to look into the emergency, convening an emergency meeting, and then I think that, we have our rules about posting agendas X number of days before, and I don't know that there's a way around that, I don't think. Unless you have a meeting a week or so later again, you're going to have a separate meeting about that topic. There's been a lot of meetings happening in between the quarters lately. That's been a trend. So I hear what you're saying. I guess it begs the question, how important is that item to get feedback from GETAC to us, if that's what you're saying, if that's the situation?
Well, now one of the things in the procedural rules that we have, it says the chair authority to represent GETAC's position. When critical time-sensitive requests for GETAC input, e.g. legislative, media, are received between meetings, the chair will seek input from the executive committee prior to responding to the request. So that executive committee, which was up above, consists of the chair, vice chair, GETAC council members that also serve as standing committee chairs. That group could give that feedback in that compressed time frame.
So there is a mechanism.
There is a mechanism.
There's that there, but it wouldn't be coming from the full quorum of GETAC,
right,
but a stepchild of GETAC, so to speak, or something,
Well, it would
for
be
those
GETAC.
occasional times.
Little brother.
Little brother, yeah.
Part of the family.
Thank you.
Okay.
My experience with agendas in all of the different cities I've worked in is you have to get all of your stuff into the city manager by a certain date for things that need to go on an agenda. If you don't get it in by then, it doesn't get on the agenda. And then that agenda is created and posted. In the current city I'm at, it's posted on a Thursday afternoon for a Monday meeting, and then there's a council packet, city council packet, that has all the information for that meeting. And I don't know, it concerns me that I'm hearing that stuff still trickles in, and maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe there was some information that wasn't available, but to me, I think as a council, we could set a rule that says you've got to get your stuff in by a certain date, whatever date that is, and if you don't, it's just not going to make it, because I don't think it's fair to DSH's staff or to the council to have stuff still rolling in past deadlines. That's my 2 cents on that.
When I receive resource documents 24 hours before the meeting, I do nothing with it.
And I don't
The
have a
chair
problem.
wants to distribute it to their to their committee. That's the chair's responsibility. I don't post it.
I think it's a good idea to have the deadline. I don't like 30 days out. And I can tell you, you always have the opportunity, if you're reading, doing research, whatever you're doing, to find an article or something that supports a position or doesn't, that you want included in your packet, and it may be 10 days out. So I think we need to have the deadline, but I think 30 days out is a long time. I think 10 days might be good. Maybe 5 days is good. I don't know, but I hate to see us have a long deadline, because it's.
I think there's also those documents that are going to be used to ask the council to take up a subject, and I think that we're talking about things that are going to be officially decided upon, but I think there's several items that we get that are going to be looked at to essentially assign to maybe one or more committees to look at and bring back the will of the people, if you will. So those documents are equally as important, but they're not necessarily part of the voted upon agenda. So I think that also, I would guess that some of those documents that she would get right up to the deadline would be simply somebody had something come up, they provided documentation, and then that got brought forward. I know that the backboard usage position was one of those things that got brought forward really rapidly, and we said, hang on a second, and it waited to the next meeting. And there's other issues that have come up. The pediatric committee had brought some things regarding positions on radiation, those kind of things. So I know that we get the documents in one meeting to help us derive a position of whether we even want to take it up in the agenda process or whatever. So we need to be mindful that some of those documents potentially aren't agenda driven currently.
So based on this, a couple things that I'm hearing based on this discussion, it sounds like Goal F, improving the process of communication, still has some work to be done on it, including making documents available electronically as soon as possible or on a set schedule. It sounds like there is a mechanism to already discuss and meet emergency business, that the example that Dr. Greenberg brought up that's already out there. But then there's also this discussion of getting documents a certain number of days in advance. But based on your comment, Mr. Matthews, maybe it's two types of documents. There's resource documents that you need, and then there's also documents that will help you with decision-making processes. So I guess the question I have is, do you at this point in time want to propose dates for how soon in advance you would like all documents or certain types of documents, or do you want just to say that this is an item that's going to need to be continued to be worked on as part of the strategic plan?
Well, do all the documents go through the committee chairs to Jane, or how do they get to you? Can anybody send a document to you and you would perhaps post it, or what?
Generally, it's going to have to come through the committee chair. If there's a committee member that's working on editing a document and we know who that is, we might contact them and say, hey, do you have the most recent document? Sure. But in general, it's going to come through the committee chair.
We need a deadline. When I first came on the council, I was like getting ready the week before, and I was like, saw the agenda, I was like, I have no knowledge on any of this stuff. So, I was trying to prepare, calling people, but we need the paperwork a week or 2 weeks in advance.
So I hear a proposal for 2 weeks in advance for all documents related.
That may be a little long, I'm not sure. But
Jane, can you walk us through how the process? Okay, so somebody sends you a document, and then exactly what happens getting it on the net, who does it, what kind of internal time frames do you have set up?
That's actually handled by my staff. I actually have staff in our area that post those documents on our web pages. So once we have the document and it's something that can be posted, it's not something that's prohibited from being posted, then we can get it up pretty quick. Generally, we try to collect the documents and have them, send them to Adrian as a group. But when I get things in from, say, Dudley sends me something, I'll say, put it up on the EMS committee webpage as a resource document. She goes in and does that, and then it shoots out this Gov delivery thing that there's been an edit to the page. Go in and look. So that's basically the way it's working. Now, I will tell you that we're going through the process. One of our goals this year is to completely redo our web pages. So if you have suggestions on how you'd like it to look and flow, we're open because we're working on that this year.
It's an internal process.
Yes, internal process. That's
So what I'm hearing then is you don't necessarily have internal policies that your person gets. She needs a minimum of 3 working days to post it or anything like that. There's no internal policy right now.
Not at this point in time. No.
I need some clarification about, because I'm hearing posting documents and I'm hearing documents we need to make decisions, And and then there's committee documents, and then there's resource documents for those committees. So what exactly are we trying to accomplish, or what when we talk about deadlines?
Why not all be the same?
So would you suggest a minimum of, are you suggesting that a minimum of 2 weeks prior to the posted, I'm sorry?
All of the correspondence.
All documents would be made available to DSHS, and then they would post them as, in a day or two to have them.
Because where I'm going with this is, how much time in advance does this council want to read through the documentation before our meeting?
At least a week, I think.
Okay, at least a week. So for us to get it a week ahead of time, how much ahead of time of that does DSHS need to get it?
That's where I was headed. Right.
And Jane, of that, does it have to be reviewed by legal before it comes up? Can we put any document up?
Some of the things that
Since
would
we're
be
muddying the water.
copyrighted, we would actually post a link. Remember, we talked about posting documents on our website. So if it's a copyrighted document, we would ask that you give us the link to wherever it lives. And we would post that link on our website as where to go to get that resource document.
One thing I wanted to point out is that when a quorum meets, there's agendas, and the agenda is the items that's going to cause the deliberation and talking. And so documents, I think, that are going to be tied to an agenda item should come in, I guess, in front of the date that the chairs need to give the agenda items to us. And I know she let the cat out of the bag, said 7. I think for a while there, we're trying to get everybody to get it in by 10 days or 14 days, the agenda items. So if there's documents that are going to go to agenda item, then for us posting them, then that would be great, because then you know you're going to talk about that topic and that paper's on that topic. But now if there's papers that are not tied to any agenda items or documents that are not tied to that, and I know that you were alluding to that, so there's some documents like that that'll help y'all decide whether to put an item on the agenda later. I don't know necessarily how, if you got one of those documents out there that's not on the agenda, goes to a topic that's not on the agenda, then it's going to cause talk about whatever that is. If it's just a little bit about, well, this is what we're going to have on the next agenda, I don't know that you necessarily need a lot of documents about that maybe, but you're saying maybe you do. But that's going to get into a realm of documents that are going to be out there for everybody to have, to stimulate them to talk about at a meeting that may not be on the agenda. I just throw that out there.
Right, and I wasn't insinuating that we would deliberate based on that information. I think there's 2 types of documents, so I'll answer your question and see if there's one type that is specific to the deliberation of the agenda, which is posted, and we know we're going to address this subject. I feel like that information is paramount, and yes, it does need a date. Don't know what that date is. I'll leave that up to somebody who knows the process better, but I do think that we need it at least a week ahead of time. What I was making reference to is there would be a second type of document that would be relevant to whether we wanted to undertake committee assignments based on a topic that's brought forward. That happens every time a committee comes forward and gives us a report, and then you say, do we have anything that's going to need to be added to the agenda? And so if we're going to close the loop here, you're having a group of people that are helping to assure that the agendas are coordinated and that we're using the best use of everyone's time. But we also need to have documents that are going to be able to say, do we really need to take that up or not? The one thing that I got brought up was the pediatric, whether or not the council should endorse a radiation level in pediatrics. Well, if I would have been asked ahead of time, I'd say, is that really within the auspice of our charge to talk about how somebody practices appropriate medicine? And then I would have said, I don't feel comfortable necessarily weighing in on that because that's not our forte. So if we'd have had that document ahead of time, then we could have said maybe it doesn't need to be added to the agenda one way or the other. So not picking on that topic, I'm just trying to give a position to talk about.
Okay, so just to make sure I understood what you said, there's what I'm going to call agenda documents directly related to the agenda we're going to talk about. But then there's non-agenda documents, because a committee may come to us and say, we want to talk about basket weaving, and there's some document out there about basket weaving, so how do we get that so that we can decide whether we want them to work on it or not?
Right.
Is that?
Right.
Wow.
Well, and I think that's the crux of the situation. I know it's not easy, but it's difficult to set up and give the illusion that we're considering something when, we haven't been able to have all of the information. So
I think it's going to be incumbent upon the committee chair that when they submit those documents that they do research before we submit it. I think sometimes we get an idea and just submit it without due diligence and homework of making sure before we submit something that we've done some homework, that we'd submit all the documentation that goes with it. If we can do this electronically, is 10 days too short? Agendas have to be in 30.
10
Can we
days
use
too
10?
short for what?
For us to turn in additional documents. If we have to have the agenda in 30, 45
Right.
to 30,
Right.
if we have supporting documents, we obviously need a time frame for that.
Mm-hmm. If we could have them 2 weeks prior to the meeting date, all right, the agendas will go forward, so we know pretty much the things that are on the agenda are going to stay on the agenda 10 days out, because they've already gone over Texas Register. 14 days out, they're out of my hands. They've gone over to OGC by then.
So you really need them 14 calendar days, not
Calendar
10 business days. You need 14 days.
Well, yeah, Phil is the expert. He is the poor guy that gets beat up with this every quarter. Okay.
So before we get the answer, just so I'm clear, I'm running a little slow. Are we talking about agenda documents, or are we talking about things we might want to put on agenda documents?
Well, I'm talking about agenda documents.
That's what I'm talking about too.
Okay.
Agenda documents.
Why wouldn't that stuff be due when the agenda is due to DSHS?
That would certainly make our lives easier.
I think that's when it should be, but I believe someone say, can we do it 7 days or 10 days? I don't really care. I just want to get a standard that we can follow. If it's 30 days, that's fine. That means we just have to do a little due diligence, and we can't pop an agenda item out there and say, I'll do the research between now and then, and 10 days before the meeting, I'll submit that document. We're going to have to do that work ahead of time and submit it all as a package.
It would also help us in the development of the agenda items for your agendas. We literally get some items are submitted to us with 3 or 4 words, and some of those words are acronyms. And then we have to go figure out what that is, and literally go out and do a search and pull it and find out what we're actually talking about, and then craft the agenda item to go on the agenda. Sometimes you just throw your hands up and kick it back and say, I'm sorry, I can't work with what you've given me. Please give me information that I can craft an agenda item.
Would the council mind if we ask a couple of committee chairs, since they're present, open up to public discussion? No, I'm not saying no. So the question I have is, why would you not have all supporting agenda documents ready to turn in at the same time you submit your agendas to DSHS? Because we don't want to hamstring you, but at the same time, I'm agreeing with what Jody said. We can't put an agenda item and then, within 3 weeks we'll have the rest of the documents. So, but tell me, y'all, we want to keep y'all efficient.
That's what I was just starting to get a little concerned about, is when we start talking 15 or 30 days, 45 days. So if something has to be in for the next committee meeting, 45 days in advance of that committee meeting, that means I have until the 1st of April to get any work done and get it finished. Because we're 45 days out the 1st of April, that's 6 weeks from now. So it's going to way slow down the progress that we're making, which was an issue that came up a year or 2 ago, is how slow this body moved and nothing ever got done. I understand the need of the council. I have a city council as well, and Chief, you were very good on that. Ours have to be in on Wednesday for a Tuesday meeting. That's also, so that's 5 days, or 5 business days. And their packets go out on Friday for them. That's also my full-time job, and they compensate me pretty okay for that. This is a volunteer thing, and all of my committee members are volunteers, and we're putting a lot in. And this isn't a sob story, but there are times trying to get stuff out of my committee members or trying to get a document finalized and all of that, that we are taking that right up as close as we can. If you're going to put a deadline on something, I would beg you to please make that the Friday before GTAC meets at the absolute earliest that you put that deadline on there, because there's a lot of work, and as the meeting gets closer, the motivation of the volunteers get a little bit higher and a little bit higher because they know that document's got to be in and that work has to be done. And so, because a prime example, although that deadline was set by echelons way above this group, was the report that the EMS committee did in November. We got that done and finalized through the working group of my committee. We were meeting on Saturday. I think we got it done the Friday before that Saturday. And we cleaned it up a little bit more, and we put it out, and we sent it to everybody over that weekend leading up to the week before, or even maybe the Monday before that we got together that following weekend. And so those big projects and those type of things that we're really pushing, because this is time sensitive or we really need to get that approved this time, sometimes those documents take a little bit of time to flesh out to get all that stuff on there. I understand your guys' needs to review it, and I'm actually excited that you're frustrated because you can't review that earlier. It's just the process of this. Give us a deadline, but if you're talking 30, 45 days in advance of our next meeting, you're cutting our working time between meetings in half to get that work done. So that's the only thing I would encourage you to think about. And then the other piece on the website and some of those other things I heard Dr. Greenberg say about having to pull the agenda up. I don't know how you're doing it in your city, Chief, or you either, Judge, but one of the things our city secretary found was a way to use Adobe to put all of those, that whole packet's now a single Adobe file with tabs. And I'm wondering if we couldn't do that for the document meetings, is everything goes into a single Adobe file. If you want the EMS agenda, you click on the EMS tab and it takes you right to it, as opposed to having to open up the EMS agenda and the GTAC agenda and that kind of thing. So, but please just be very leery of the deadlines if you can.
So what you're saying is agenda documents, requiring agenda documents to be turned in at the same deadline as the agenda is not such a good idea?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then that goes back to the original question. If this council wants agenda documents by the Friday before the council meeting, when do they have to be into DSHS so that we can have them the Friday before the council meeting?
If you wait until the Friday before the council meeting, I cannot guarantee you that I can get you those documents in the format in which you wish to have them in electronic coming to you guys. Because that literally, this staff is trying to put this stuff together the week prior. So it would be, on our side anyway, in order to support you with that, we need it before the Friday before the council meeting. So that's 7 days out. That's not even business days. That's just 5 business days. Because for us, beginning on Wednesday, the staff's not in the office. They're not going to be able to do anything. So that gives us basically Monday, Tuesday to get any of that done.
So could we say agenda documents are due to DSHS 10 business days before the council meeting?
Yes, we could work that.
How about the committee chairs? I see some eyes bugging out. Is that?
How about the Monday? 10 days. How about the Monday before? Monday morning.
You got to come up to the microphone, please.
How about Monday morning the week before?
Yeah. I mean, won't non-council people want to look at this stuff also? I mean, people that are on committees need to look at this, and people that are coming as stakeholders, I mean, they need some time too.
Agreed. I don't know. I was going to make, I mean, that's a good point. I was going to make a suggestion that, you know, I'm more than happy to, I mean, you guys know I send you stuff all the time. I'm more than happy to send you guys stuff. If I miss that deadline, it's just, I mean, how about, so you're saying you would need it before the Friday before GTAC meets, right? So if
Right.
GTAC's meeting on this Friday, you would have needed it before last Friday.
You would need it Monday before the Friday before the Friday.
Correct. So tomorrow's the 14th. Last Friday was the 7th, and you would have needed it on the 3rd.
Just to make sure I'm clear, I mean, from a processing perspective, I'm struggling with, we have administrative people at our office.
There you go.
Got it.
Eric Epley, Disaster Committee.
So I'm trying to factor in, if I said a 4-page or a 3-page Word or PDF document, I'm going to send it electronically. I'm not going to mail it. I'm going to, compiling the documents into what? We're already sending them formatted. We're already sending them electronically in PDF and or Word format, and then we could do. There's a save as and save it as PDF. I don't understand what would take 5 from Monday to Friday to get it to you guys by Friday. If it's 2 days, 16 hours of administrative time. I would my staff would be. Never mind. No, I'm not volunteering. They would be.
What would be wrong with just saying that if and Jane should be able to set this deadline, if you want dishes to basically copy and or distribute your documents, it's going to have to be in at a particular date and a particular time. But if you don't want to do that, then it's your responsibility to make sure that each one of us have that document in hand.
I think that's
whether
great.
that be in an email or
Yep.
whether it be whatever, or hand it to us when we walk in the door.
So if GETAC's Judge, for you're saying you guys need it on Friday to get them to get it to you by email. I have to send it to them on Monday, but I could send it to you on Thursday night.
Wait, which Thursday night are you talking about now?
Pre-meeting, the week before.
Thursday night before.
Last Friday.
This discussion started because a lot of times these documents that we get in this folder, we get them when we walk up here to the door.
Yeah.
And Ryan and I'm not trying to speak for Ryan, but basically, if you want us to vote on an agenda item, the sooner we have those documents, the better informed we're going to be when we vote on that agenda item. So, I think we're cutting cabbage here over something that Jane should say, if you want me to take care of your documents, this is the day that I need it. But if you want to send me a document right now, that's up to you. You can get it here whenever you want to.
Okay.
The problem is your ability to use it to deliberate.
Right.
If one of GETAC members, that happens to be a chair, shoots that document out to the quorum of the GETAC members, deliberation is defined as receiving information as a quorum. And then there's been stuff written about emailing each other, and maybe in the email you're just passing over a document. There might be some little talk. This is what we're going to talk about. I'd like to have this. Now that's receiving, the quorum is receiving something that they're going to decide on outside of a posted meeting. So that's why Jane was the idea of it all coming to DSHS and we put it out there, then we or other people aren't talking to the quorum. The quorum can come as individuals and look at it. I think that was one of the reasons, or a mechanism of trying to prevent that email quorum stuff happening.
I think from a council member's perspective, and go back, Dr. Tarek started on a minute ago, we're all trying to get it done. We need to see it as soon as we can. I'd like to know that the Monday, the Friday, before GETAC, at 5 o'clock, everything I need, I have. So I've got 7 to 10 days to sit, look, research, and digest. I'll be honest with you. I will usually get here Wednesday and run to the table to get the purple folder or whatever color it is so I can see what's in it. It would be much better if I had that folder 10 days before we got here. So I've actually read it, highlighted, researched, done everything that I need to do. I think it's fine to say, yeah, it's here Monday. How much time does that give us? Because I don't know if you're like me, Tuesday, you're wrapping up your office so you can get here for the next 3 days or four days. I know it might be inconvenient and we volunteer, but this is what we do. And I think we'll do our job better if we can get this, number one, electronically and do away with the paper. And the sooner we can get it, then it's incumbent upon us, because if we come in unprepared then and we've had it for 10 days prior to the meeting, that's on us.
I want to say something just for the record, whether it values anything, but I think that our committee chairmen have the tools, have the knowledge. Why do we need to burden them? And this is just my opinion. I don't speak for. Why do we need to burden them to give us so much extra effort? I think that if they just, I'm of the belief of when we were in school, we used to buy the Cliff Notes. Why can't they do something like that for us? Why do we, I don't have a whole lot of time, nor do I want to spend, a week reading everybody's emails and extended documents and so on and so forth. And I know that this is just about me, but I think that they are the experts in their position, and what they give to us should be worth something, and maybe they can back it up with the bullets of what it is that they're proposing. But to go to so much work for them as they hold down jobs like we do, and nothing, I don't think any of us do this full-time just for the heck of it. I think we all have so much more to do. And that's just my thought. Not that it's right, not that it's wrong. Just wanted to put it out there.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
When I sat down, Don whispered something in my ear that I wanted to mention just as a clarification. The issues that provide me heartburn aren't the documents that I want out there that somebody else has produced. A position paper, a white paper, a research paper, a flyer for a frog festival. I don't care about that. I'll forward that stuff as soon as I get it. The stuff I'm concerned about is the actual work our committee is producing that we're bringing to you guys, that a lot of times we're coming right up to the week before to get that finalized amongst ourselves before we bring that to council. So that was my concern about the 45 days in advance and that type of thing, is those pieces.
I agree. So I'm going to, the example, so the doctors in the room, this will make complete sense. This is you have to give a talk 3 months from now. And the CME Nazis start 90 days before the conference. You must have your PowerPoint to me by, you're going, I don't talk for another 3 months. And so it's not just us that are producing the documents. It's a work of, the adage, if you wait to the last minute, it only takes a minute. Trying to get your committee to participate in something with some artificial deadline 30 days out. So to the judge's point, if we're supposed to have it to you guys by, Jody, I think Friday at 5 is perfect. If we don't have it in your hands, either via them or whatever method, by Friday at 5 p.m., it should go off the agenda the following Friday at GETAC. That gives you the entire weekend. That's 7 full days, not 7 to 10 days, 7 full days, including the weekend, which is more likely when you're going to look at some of that stuff anyway, because once Monday, Tuesday gets there, you're not going to look at it. So I would be happy. I think that's a fine deadline, and then I would extend to DSHS, tell me whatever time, to be able to put in your email box Friday at 5 the PDF that I'm going to send them. Do I need to send that to them 30 minutes, which means they click forward, or do I need to send it on Wednesday so they click forward, or on Monday so they click forward? That's all I need to know. And I'll live with whatever they decide, because it's gracious that they would help us with it.
And the one thing I want to add is, so we're not chasing emails. It comes from DSHS. So we're not going, I got an email from you, an email from you, an email from you about a packet, and now I'm trying to put it all together. Just make sure we get it all the dishes, so when Jane sends it, I go to one spot and I got it all.
If you send it to me on Friday afternoon before GETAC, you will get a forward email. You will not get it coming to you in one packet.
No, I mean, when you send us the information the week before, a week and a half, whatever.
Right. Can
we get it from, I don't want it piecemeals.
That's what would be my intention. That would be my preference, is that when we send it to you guys, that it comes to you as your GETAC packet, as though you were getting the purple folder with the agendas, your agenda, the committee agenda, the resource documents that you need to go with the committee agenda items in that electronic package. That was my vision.
So
when do you need it?
Yeah, when would you need
When
it?
do you need it?
If we get it by 5 o'clock Friday, when would you need it? I think that's what Eric was talking about.
Yeah.
How many days in advance of that?
I need it 10 business days in advance of this meeting, right?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
How about Monday morning the week before?
Pardon?
Okay.
By Monday morning the week before.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me summarize what I think
That'll work.
I'm hearing is, I'm hearing that council would like to have the documents for the council meeting by 5 o'clock the Friday before the council meeting, that the committee chairs are okay and understand that and support that we need that week to read the documentations. But what I'm thinking, where I'm hearing the heartburn is having the committee chair submit that documentation 10 full business days before the council meeting is a problem. That's Is that a fair summary? You're okay?
We'll make that work.
Okay. You're sure that's workable? Okay.
I'm glad it's not 45, so.
Agendas still have to be in.
Agendas are different. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's the work that's product. I mean, a magazine article, I'll send you tomorrow to put on next time. I don't care, but.
So let me take the council down another rabbit trail, and John's having a heart attack over there. And there's probably a simple answer to this question, but to me, what I'm hearing as I ask the why question is, why are we butting up against a deadline? Are we asking the committees to produce a product too fast and they really need more time than what's being allotted?
No, shouldn't.
No? Okay.
You have to think about the process. I have to tell you on this meeting, this would be a lot easier, big chair.
You don't have to sit back that far.
You don't have to sit that far back.
Wow.
Dudley was up here a little while ago.
I know, he just said he wanted to make sure you walk back and forth to take time. The problem is, I have to tell you, if we come up in a meeting today, we had a meeting yesterday morning, so we have a work product. We're going to be working on it over the next little while. I have to tell you tomorrow, next meeting, we're going to have something for you to vote on. It's about, really, we could give it to you today. Those kind of things are easy. I'll turn it into her that afternoon, and you can't act on it. But when we have something that's a modification to the ambulance criteria that we're going to have the medical directors and some of the other guys look at to change if we're going to add something to the ambulance criteria and disaster usage of the ambulance. Okay, so it's human nature. I'm sending it to different people trying to get that thing put together. And so right now, the clock starts. I have 2 months and, a week or a week and a half, except that spring break's in the middle of that. So 10 days, people aren't going to help you, right? So then you lose 10 days. I mean, it's Christmas break, it's the summer, it's whatever. And all of this is duties as assigned. So as committee chairs, we work with our committee members. And God forbid we have to work with another committee or send it around to other people to get their opinions on things. It just is the human nature aspect of this, that artificial deadlines that live in this world don't always translate as well to people who have real jobs that are trying to do other things as well, and you're genuine trying to get their help.
So the example that you used about the ambulance specifications,
yep.
Why don't we just do it in August instead of May?
Because
why are we
hurricane season starts on June. Perfect example. So if we have a document right now, we're sitting in February, and you're telling me we have to wait till August to be able to pass. So we'll get it done sooner. We'll yell at people more. We'll do whatever we got to do to get the stuff done. Okay. So we have it in place. And I want to be really, really clear. Dr. Greenberg, you were helpful. So I heard Monday morning. Are we saying Monday end of business? Or the start of business on Monday at 7:59 a.m.? What is Monday? I'm not being. When does the thing? When's the clock? When have I not submitted it?
That's a Jane answer. Yeah. Whenever she needs it.
Monday end of business would be a very logical time.
Okay, so tomorrow's the 14th. If we had this at close of business on the 3rd. That would work. That it would be that Monday. So any time on that Monday.
Close of business. If it's not in your hands, end of business on the Monday before GETAC week. Right?
Correct.
Okay. End of business Mondays. What's clarifying?
Sorry, that's my ER doc. My business doesn't close, so that term means nothing to me. I do know that I do things late at night and on weekends, and Monday morning makes more sense to me. So, but I don't care either way.
And that's fine.
But close to business makes no.
1700.
Doesn't
We're
mean
talking
anything.
5 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's say 5 p.m.
5 p.m. There you go.
Central.
Central time.
And thank you, Eric. That explained why we have the rush sometimes.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
Yeah. And the kicker is, because my committee is probably the worst offender, like tomorrow I'm bringing a policy statement to GETAC that they've not seen before. So we're the worst offender, and I expect that that's going to get looked at, and if it gets kicked down the road, I'm okay with that. I really am. But that's even faster than what we've done it before. If I can, and it's the same thing. I beat on these guys to get me the stuff. They didn't bring it in until today. I don't think that's fair to council. So I'm okay with that. I think no matter what deadlines we have, because of our human nature, we're going to wait till the last minute. That's all there is to it.
And this is only involving documents that are going to be presented to GETAC. What about, is there a similar schedule for documents that are going to be presented to each of the chairs whose meetings are 2 days before GETAC, or y'all aren't getting into that? Or? Is there going to be a requirement for the chairs to get in what time for their documents to be to Jane because they're going to meet on a Wednesday and then Monday? Is that
Well, I'm assuming that includes these documents because these are the documents in support of the agenda items and what I understood of all 10 committees and the council.
Because the agenda,
did I
the
misunderstand?
GETAC agenda is Friday, but some other people's agenda is on Wednesday. That's 2 different days, and so
But they're
you're
getting it
talking
Friday
about
night.
getting out all the documents for all the committees. It's fine with you to get them on a
this
Monday.
is what they want because in order to receive their electronic package for this council, they want all of the 10 committee agendas along with the GETAC agenda and the resource documents that go along with those committee agenda items.
So for whatever documents that a chair wants to have for all his members to have, those are also going to be documents that are going to go to GETAC.
We don't get those now.
Right. Okay.
It's not a mixture. We're just talking about GETAC documents.
Right. So I think what you're saying is, let me see if I'm clear. You're saying that if Dudley's committee wants to consider something, and
On Wednesday.
On Wednesday, he disseminates the information to be considered on Wednesday to his committee. We don't see that. All we ever see is their final work product along with their final report. So we're talking about their final work product, their final report, the documents that support their final position. Otherwise, it's their committee where they work.
Okay, so the documents are being taught by just GETAC documents. We're not requiring that, say, if Dudley wants some documents that are going to be put to his committee and wants Jane to distribute it. We're not talking about that. Doesn't happen.
Oh, I think we are.
No, generally those documents are now posted on our website as resource documents.
Okay, but what I'm saying,
That's
those.
not.
You're confusing
Yeah, let me.
working documents with documents that are going to GETAC for decisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
The committees get documents all the time that GETAC may not even be aware of, and we may not even ever bring those documents forward. We're confusing the work of the committee that Jane may distribute versus.
Okay, so the committees, when they have documents, we're not putting those on a website for Dudley's committee to. I'm mixing it up because we're only talking about documents that GETAC wants for their Friday meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
But some of those are committee documents.
Some of those will be committee documents. If we get them now, if the committee chair sends us those documents, then we post them as a resource or we post the link so that people can go and get them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't always get them.
As a resource to an GETAC agenda item. They might
No,
also
as a
simultaneously
committee.
be a document as a resource document for an EMS committee agenda item that's the Wednesday before GETAC.
For instance, there were a couple of white papers that the medical directors committee was working on. So we had those documents and we posted them on the website as a resource document. When they were coming up to GETAC, we asked if we had the current version so that could come to the council.
Okay. So basically, the purple folder, any documents that are in there when I get them, they're usually tied to, they're there for the GETAC committee members. They might happen to be also overlapping and supporting an item on an EMS committee agenda, but okay.
Okay, well, I think we kind of got into the weeds a little bit, but we needed to because I think the ultimate goal was so that council could be able to study stuff and give it its due review before our meeting. So I'm going to let John pick it back up and get the train back moving down the track.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought that was going to be an easy one, so let's see how we can do here with Goal G. Bless your heart, Martha. I think we all owe Martha a big round of applause on Goal F as on the other ones as well. So Goal G, develop and refine the system for orientation for council members to clarify legal and other requirements related to membership roles and responsibilities. believe Chief Riley, Judge Deloitte, and Mr. Harbert, you had looked at this, and I believe the note is that asked DSHS to explore create a training session for council and committee members with a focus on online training. Webinar would suffice, so I'd ask the chair and others how you stand on this.
How do we stand? We just got new council members.
Well, I think where we stand on it is the governor's office, it's up to them whether they hold their orientation or not. And I don't know if the new council members will be asked to go to an orientation. I think
Haven't been asked yet.
Haven't been asked yet. Okay.
Jane, didn't you?
So the process for the orientation is the training session that's held during the EMS conference for committee chairs and new council members in case they don't get anything from the governor's office. I'm still not certain that that meets what we were trying to do, but.
Because the only training they get now is the one that you all provide them, correct?
Online training.
Didn't we have one that they sat through?
There's an online, and then Jane's people sat with us, or sat with me at one meeting. I don't remember when. I thought it was pretty good, actually.
Well, I'm not sure. You know, there's the online training for the open meetings requirements, and then we've kind of
The last 2.5 hours have been your training. The last 2.5 hours have been your training.
and I think for the council training, what we did was we went over travel and how you get travel reimbursement. That was included for the council because that's specific to the council. And then any of the council members that wanted to sit in the new committee orientation, then they can sit through that, but it's certainly not mandatory. Now, what we've done in the past for some, and I know when Linda Dickerson, when you came on, Linda came and she spent a couple hours with me, and we just went through kind of GETAC and what it is and talked about it. And Dr. Fazzetti, when he came on, the same thing I did with him. So I'm happy to do that with individual council members, or I can do that for a group. I mean, I'm willing to do it any way that you guys would like.
Jane, why isn't it that we don't go through the governor's office? Why is this, on the other board I sat on, we went through the governor's office and were trained by...
You'd have to ask the governor's office that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I thought maybe it was something that you're not doing at this end to
Because the governor does the appointments, and so whatever
I understand what the other
however
boards-
they deem, that's up to them. So
As our spokesperson, you don't think that that should be something that you discuss with them? I mean,
well, I'm not really your spokesperson. That is something that you could certainly take up with the governor's office. Is there some sort of orientation for his appointees?
Jane?
Well, I've been through it, but I think it's really important that the people that haven't.
When I was appointed also, we spent a day going through that. Does that not affect them anymore? Has it changed? Are they not doing it?
Jody, honestly, I have no idea because I don't. The only communication I have with the appointments office is these are the folks that are coming on.
Because we went through it. I mean, it was a day long.
But I didn't go through this appointment.
Right.
That's why I was.
I did for this one. It was a day long, included dinner at the end with the governor and everybody.
Yeah, with the governor's mansion, dinner, everything.
Yeah.
It burned down.
No, but
We had the last dinner before it burned.
Okay.
Last supper.
Okay, so on this goal, where do we need to go with this?
I think we need to talk to the governor's office and ask if this is a change that they've made,
Or why we're not in the loop.
or is there information that these folks should get that they're not getting simply because, I don't know, whether they forgot or changed it or what?
How about if the chair contacts the governor's office and expresses our concerns, or finds out if they are going to have one in the future as an aside from this goal? And then I can just get back with y'all.
I think we all need a kickstart again, because it's been more than 8-9 years since I've been.
Okay, so we will mark that. Then it sounds like there's other training that's more detailed related to some of the operational aspects that DSHS already provides. continue to provide that. It seems like that's working well. Or is there other type of training orientation that you need from DSHS, notwithstanding the governors?
I think this one was specifically that day-long session put on by the governor's office.
Okay, so we'll note that.
Yeah.
Do you want to check with public comment on, sir, before?
Yes, is there any public comment on goal G? I'm not seeing any. We will move on.
So we'll move to goal H. I believe this one will be rather straightforward. Conduct a GTAC strategic plan review at least every 2 years. It seems like that this is being done, but I'll turn it over to Chief Riley. Mr. Click is not here, so Chief Riley.
Any comment?
Hurry before Ryan gets back.
Is this one of those that goes to procedure since it's being done, so it is removed as a goal, or do you think it's important to continue this as a goal?
Let's say leave it as a goal.
Yeah.
Leave it as part of the strategic plan, that we will review the strategic plan biannually.
If you include that in the strategic plan, do we need to continue it on here as a goal? I mean, it's kind of like a policy thing, you know. And
It's up to y'all.
I think it needs to be continued, and I don't want to see it deleted from anything that would cause it to not be continued or forgotten in the future. It's just a question.
I think whether it's a policy or procedure or whether it's in the strategic plan as a goal, it would continue. I think the benefit of having it in the strategic plan is it highlights the importance of it, so it's more visible. But I think if your policy is to do X, Y, or Z, as a council, you would be following those policies. So it depends on how you want to highlight.
We could actually do both. We could have a GTAC procedural rule that GTAC will review their strategic plan biannually and then leave it in the strategic plan since it's a living document, and we change it every 2 years. Would that work, Shirley? Okay. Council?
Sure.
Okay.
Would you like to request comment from the public?
Public comment on goal H. Seeing none, we'll move on.
We'll move to goal I, partner with organizations to support GTAC activities as necessary. Ms. Schultz and Mr. Matthew were the two council member leads for this. Your thoughts on progress at this point in time, please?
Well, I think the most obvious partnership. The most obvious partnership activity we have is the airing of the GTAC meetings through TTAF, yeah, and certainly I think everybody appreciates that effort. As far as opportunities for increased collaboration based on findings from other goals and activities, I don't know that I have been able to identify anything else that we need to do. And if there is something that we should be doing or working towards, I certainly would be happy to hear those.
I think we also have the incorporation of the EMSC report, and I think that also is collaborative. So I think we're doing pretty well as far as collaboration with like-minded groups.
I'm also trying to do a little more collaboration with my stakeholder group because that really hasn't happened up until now, and hopefully they'll be more involved as they get more interested. It's nice for them to have an opinion, so and they do, a new opinion, so all 22,000 of them.
So would you like, as a council, just to keep item number 2, increased collaboration, is an activity for this goal, just as a reminder that you all feel that this is important?
Is that okay with council? Okay. Any public comment on goal I? Going once, going twice. I think we're done with goal I.
Goal J, organize the regularly scheduled quarterly GTAC business to 2-day meetings. I believe that quite a few people signed up for this one. Dr. Greenberg, Mr. Smith, who I believe is Mr. John Smith, he's no longer on the council. Ms. Castaneda Rivas and Donald Phillips. Is Dr. Phillips?
He's not here.
Dr. Phillips is
No longer on the council, so I'll turn it to Dr. Greenberg.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead and start this conversation all over again.
Okay.
Never mind. I think we should put this as completed or dispensed with and move to K quickly.
There is no K. This is the last
Excellent.
one. So,
back to E.
Well, E is the last one. We're going to go back, but no more on those.
Second and thirded.
So it's the consensus of council to remove Goal J entirely from the strategic plan?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's a
So-
resounding unanimous vote.
So we'll retire this.
You're retired.
Would you like to check and see if there's other public comment rather than the applause?
Is there any public comment? Seeing none, moving on to the next one. No, seriously, if anybody wanted to comment on Goal J, we will listen at this time.
So we're at the end of the first round of reviews, Goal E, the EMS trauma plan, discussing that. We have, if I could suggest to the chair, maybe if we could take a 10 or 15-minute break.
Sure. I just wanted to, I didn't see anybody approach the microphone, but did anybody have anything comment on Goal J? Okay, close the public comment.
Thank you.
And we will recess for 10 minutes and reconvene at 4 p.m. sharp.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And for those that came in after we started the meeting, we're going to move to Goal E at 4 o'clock, and that's regarding the state EMS trauma strategic plan update.
It was my first time. I got one. It was me.
Can't turn it off.
Judge?
Jody? Oh, I understand. I'm getting old, but I got to you both. Okay.
So how does it work to get to the, okay, these are there any new ones? We want to do that before we go in?
The only, maybe when we end today, we were trying to put back to my sense is we can end today, think about the only one thing I heard of was the committee minutes, but it's already a procedural rule. President of the board of directors too, so I was trying to see like on top of medicine. Yeah, so that's the way they do us. Is when we go to the UK, they leave us around for 5 days and tell us the business we're supposed to do. Whatever y'all want, I if I don't mind, I would rather do it. Assuming you all are okay with it. I hate for you all to be based on myself. It's just we made this a couple weeks in advance. I'm not sure, but I don't want to hurt y'all to see it. After last night's reception. That was bad. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and I have to drive back and be on call tonight.
Are you serious? What time does your call start?
Now.
Who's covered?
Well, there's 2 of us in-house at any one time now.
Oh, gosh.
We went to that model, kind of a novel model.
Somebody like covering trauma and the other covers emergency surgery, or
We have trauma. Basically, we have somebody that covers the surgical side, resuscitation and surgery, and then somebody covers the surgical ICU.
Okay. And then there's the backup.
So I'm the surgical ICU guy for that anyway, so I just asked the trauma guy to cover it.
Wow.
Or 2.
How long does it take to drive back?
Oh my God.
I bet the traffic is not fun.
It's just not. If you can drive, it's an hour, 8 hours, 20 minutes.
You're driving. I thought it'd be even worse than that, actually.
But with traffic, the traffic here in Austin is terrible. Judge, where are you from? What part of
Lamb County, northwest of Lubbock.
Where, I'm sorry?
Northwest of Lubbock.
What county?
Lamb.
Okay.
Littlefield's the county
Where's
seat.
Muleshoe?
They're on 30 miles on northwest of
I
Lubbock.
spent 3 days in Muleshoe one time testifying. This poor child abuse case. The lady burned her baby and took off to Mexico, and the federales caught her. It was a hanging jury.
I remember that.
Yeah. It was Muleshoe. I think I ate 3 times at their Sonic. There was like many restaurants.
They have a Mexican restaurant there now that is
Really?
It's kind of a small chain, but it's because there's several around. But it's
Taco Bell chain?
It's real good. It's called Leo's.
How do you spell L-E-O?
Leals.
Oh, okay,
That's my
different.
mom's maiden name.
Huh.
That's my mother's maiden name.
Really? Yeah. They have 2 in Clovis, New Mexico, 1 in Muleshoe, 1 in Amarillo, and I'm sure there's another one that I'm missing. But
It's funny because I was
Well, you and I
my
both.
office is out of Indiana.
Oh, seeing that. I thought you were from San Antonio.
I'm from Harlingen, but
Oh, Harlingen,
I
that's
cover
right, that's right.
the different states. But
Okay.
my corporate office is Indiana, and it's called
who do you work for?
Pharmacon. And like Farm Medium is one of my competitors. But anyway, I went to
Who's one of your competitors?
like Farm Medium. I went to
I
a
bet that's
Mexican
right.
restaurant in Carmel,
I bet
which is
that's
like
right.
40 minutes from Indianapolis. Like, I ordered fajitas,
It was
beef skirt.
It's not even real good
It's just like
chicken.
a bad sirloin, not a
Dried out?
Yeah.
It's like a beef jerky.
Dude, they're really messy down here.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have 2 minutes after 4 o'clock. If we could
Oh my gosh.
reconvene.
Actually, I do too. You make me hungry now because I didn't have lunch. Yeah, it's tomorrow. They said we're getting this thing.
Please don't quit after your first day over a document discussion.
So
I've been told my sentence. My sentence is.
our next item on the agenda is to discuss Goal E. Before we do that, we have a little bit of process business to discuss. We have goals that we may want to add to our strategic plan.